So on behalf of IndiaFacts, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Sandeep and I am the CEO of IndiaFacts. Before we begin today's seminar on the persecution of Hindus, I would like to take a couple of minutes to say a few words about IndiaFacts. So IndiaFacts was conceptualized as a non-profit endeavor that broadly has the following objectives: to keep a watch and to counter distortions in public discourse. This includes the now familiar phenomenon of distorted and paid news, reporting false news, and in many cases even suppressing news. The damage that this has caused is well documented by the likes of Mr. Arun Shourie and other people. IndiaFacts intends to carry this legacy forward. Second is to observe and to respond to threats against the Indian nation, its civilizational ethos, its culture and society, and disseminating this information as widely as possible. The third objective is to craft a positive discourse based on values and philosophies rooted in the Indian soil. Most of the damage that has occurred to India has occurred because we have allowed foreigners to define who we are. So IndiaFacts primarily runs as an online media format. You can access it at the URL www.indiafacts.co.in. The present seminar is a second such similar initiative from IndiaFacts at the same venue but in different building, with many more to follow in the future. Our first event conducted last month was in the roundtable format to address the Bangladesh illegal immigration issue, and the success of that roundtable has only spurred us on to continue in the same direction. So no article or book on the history of Hindus and India is complete without Will Durant's legendary quote on the medieval conquest of India by Islamic invaders. The Islamic conquest of India is probably the bloodiest story in history. It is a discouraging tale, for its evident moral is that civilization is a precious good whose delicate complex of order and freedom, culture and peace can at any moment be overtaken by barbarians invading from without or multiplying within. What is equally valid is also Jagannath Sarkar's observation that the British colonization of India was an event in which the control of India merely changed hands from Muslim rulers to the British. But the common factor remained the same: the seemingly unending persecution of Hindus in their own homeland, a nightmare which continues till date. In fact, in the present day, the persecution of Hindus in their own homeland continues with a somewhat abated physical vigor, but it is carried on nevertheless insidiously. The consequences of a certain brand of politics practiced over 60 plus years has created yet another danger of large sections of elite Hindus who have directly and tacitly aided in the persecution of Hindus even to this day. Indeed, what no history book or mainstream narrative mentions is a very evident fact, that the creation of Pakistan was the triumph of precisely this persecution of Hindus. And as we observe events unfolding in the country today, it is clear that Kashmir has been ethnically cleansed of Hindus, and the Sikhs living there today are subjected to regular threats from Islamist groups. Down south, Kerala presents an alarming picture of rapid Islamization and frequent attacks against Hindus. West Bengal is even worse. It appears that the Hindu persecution there has received state patronage. Yet our mainstream media and our intelligentsia continue to turn a blind eye to this absolute ongoing horror. With that brief introduction, I would now take the opportunity to introduce our distinguished speakers on the dais. They have agreed to grace this occasion today. Our speakers today have put in untiring efforts and have distinguished themselves in various fields through their stellar contributions over several decades. Their commitment is unswerving and their body of work is vast, inspiring and enriching. Before we formally begin, I would like to say a few words about the format of this program so that we can utilize the time optimally and give an opportunity for everybody to both hear and be heard. Each speaker will typically take about 20 minutes to half an hour, after which we will move on to the next speaker. This will be followed by a question and answer session which I will moderate. I request your questions to be brief and to the point. With that, I would like to introduce the speakers of today's seminar. First is Dr. J.K. Bajaj. Let's have a round of applause for him. Dr. Bajaj has been a physicist and a scholar of eminent standing. He is currently the Director, Center for Policy Studies, Chennai. In his long and luminous career, he has been a CSIR Research Fellow, a Research Fellow in Philosophy of Science at the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Bombay. He was also an Assistant Editor at Genocide, New Delhi, among others. He is also the author of several influential and insightful books, for instance, Timeless India, Resurgent India, and Recollecting the Indian Discipline of Growing and Sharing Food in Plenty. All these apart, he is perhaps the best and most renowned demographer in the country with his seminal work entitled Religious Demography in India. Dr. Bajaj, it is indeed a great privilege to have you here. The stage is all yours.
I'll not have to speak loud, talk down to the people.
No, they can.
Namaskar. When I was planning to speak on this issue, this phrase that has been used, persecution of Hindus in India or whatever, I felt that I'll be a little out of place and will be saying things which are what you are not expecting. But the way the introduction has put the background of in which this discussion is to take place, I am feeling more relaxed. As has been said, Hindus in India began getting persecuted perhaps from the beginning of the last millennium. And I think it's been a history of continuous persecution which has not stopped till now. And this persecution has been of such a long time, long period, that my personal feeling is that Hindus have even stopped believing that they are being persecuted. They don't, when they see them being persecuted, they don't even understand that this is persecution. Persecution seems to have become the natural state of the Hindu, and it is assumed that the others have the right to do what they are doing. That has become more or less the Indian way, and I'll try to give some examples. We seem to be completely blind to the fact that we are persistently, continuously being persecuted even in the period when we are supposed to be ruling ourselves. And let me give a few examples, if you could project that. And from different fields, I'd like to give a few examples so that the various dimensions of this persecution which we seem to be continuously growing, at least they get highlighted and flagged. The first issue is, of course, just of the numbers. We somehow do not realize that one of the fundamental duties of human beings in any jati, in any society, is to ensure that that jati continues, that vansha continues, that sampradaya continues. That is the most fundamental duty. And we seem to be getting blind to that fundamental duty. It's also considered a biological duty. And if you look at the Indian literature, one of the most important things repeatedly which will be said is that this thread of santati, you ensure that it doesn't break. And we think that something stupid is being said. It has no meaning. Because of that and because of other reasons, in sheer numbers, Hindus in their own continent have been continuously declining over the whole last millennium, and particularly in the last 2 centuries of this period. And this decline is, you've done, if you could switch off, I could, and then you could give me this here. And this decline is so severe that this is the data from 1881 to 2001. In this Indian subcontinent, what was undivided India, in 1881 there were 20% Muslims, less than 20%. Now they are in 2001, 2011 data is yet to come. In 2001 they are more than 30%. Now this change of 10 percentage points, and there's corresponding decline in the what will be called Hindus, including Jains, Sikhs and Buddhists, corresponding decline from 79% to 67%. And that is slightly wrongly estimated because this Christian growth from almost 0 to 2% doesn't tell the whole story. Actually, this should be, this is the census figures. If one were to go by the figures that Christians give themselves, what they present in their own church reports and in the, what, for example, they would have written in the Encyclopedia Britannica, will be more like 6%, which will amount to a decline of 16 percentage points in the number of Hindus, in the proportion of Hindus in their own homeland in the course of just about a century. And this is the modern period when such things are not supposed to happen. This large-scale conversions and things like that were supposed to be by the habit and attributes of the medieval times. In the medieval times, at the time of Akbar, and I think we failed to realize that the time of Akbar, when Mughal rule was almost at its peak, Islamic rule had been there in India already perhaps about 400 years. And at that time, the number of Muslims in what the area that Akbar ruled would be about 1/6 of the total population. That's his own figure. And that is not whole of India because he never ruled whole of India. And now they are 1/3 in the whole of India. So between Akbar and now, so much change has occurred, and much of this change has occurred in the period when Islam is not ruling, when the British were ruling, and we are all ourselves had been ruling. So that is one fact, that our numbers are declining, and we are just not aware. We don't want to be aware. The second is, if you look at different parts of India into which India has been divided at the time of partition, there is this Pakistani part where in 1901 there were 16% Hindus. In 1941, before partition, there were 20% Hindus. And there was a reason for this increase. Later we will discuss that. After partition, less than 2% of Hindus were left in that part of India. We were cleansed out of that area, which had been our homeland for millennia. No Hindus were left. Those less than 2% who are there, they live on sufferance. They hardly matter. And this other third part, Bangladesh, there were 34% Hindus in 1901 and about 30% in 1941. There was not the same kind of cleansing as it happened in the western part of Pakistan at the time of partition. So after the partition, in 51, when the census was taken, there were about 23% Hindus in what is now Bangladesh. After that, every decade there has been large-scale expulsion of the Hindus from there. And 2001 there were 10% left from. Now, imagine that in the modern times when human rights are supposed to be so important, that in a small region like Bangladesh, a community like that of Hindus, its share goes down from 23% to, in about 40 years, to about 10%, and now perhaps it is 8%, and it's quite within foreseeable future. There will be no Hindus there. But because Hindus don't think this is persecution, the world doesn't think it is persecution. If it was any other ethnic group in the world whose population share had been reduced to this level, UN would have intervened. There will be papers full of this. There will be sociologists doing all kinds of research on it. There will be human rights activists doing all kinds of talk on it. But because it is Hindus, and because Hindus don't think this is persecution, nobody bothers. And to the extent that the Hindus don't think it is persecution, I don't know whether it's a good example to give or not, but the limit is that till yesterday, the secular state of India, whatever is left as the Hindu India, the Muslim India has gone out, held this position that these persecuted Hindus coming from Bangladesh into India, running away from persecution from there and seeking refuge in India, must be treated the same as the infiltrating Muslims coming from that region into India. This was the formal position of the government of India. And it's unimaginable. And to prove its secular credentials, one of the supposedly more nationalist governments ordered that the next lot of people coming from Bangladesh, whether they be Hindus or Muslims, should be fired at. The Hindus got fired at to prove the secular credentials of this our own governments. This will be unimaginable anywhere in the world. This is just not imaginable. One is seeing this, that in this Bangladesh area, there is such a level of persecution that the percentage of Hindus there has declined from 23% to less than 10%. And then the Indian state says that persecution or no persecution, they cannot seek refuge in the Indian region. That is the numbers that I wanted to point out. This is the larger India, but within what is no India, Assam is part of what was partitioned out India, what was left. And in Assam, I had, when 2001 census came, I had made this list of, I think we have gone too ahead, I think. There are these 6 districts, Bongaigaon, Dhubri, Kokrajhar, Barpeta, Nalbari and Darang. In these 6 districts, in the last census, 2001, Hindus had grown at a rate of, between 1991 and 2001, of less than 10%, which is completely unnatural. It can happen only if Hindus are running away from there. It cannot happen naturally given and in the same districts, for example, take this Bongaigaon, Hindus there had grown by 2%, Muslims had grown by 32%. Take this district of Dhubri, and Dhubri is very special. Hindus there had grown by less than 6%, Muslims had grown by 30%, Christians had grown by 65%. And this is all this. And when I saw this, I put it down in my book, and I would have shown it at perhaps 100 places, that this is what has happened. It doesn't stir anything anywhere. We don't even try to understand what is happening there. Let's go and find out what is happening there. There will be much worse situation. In fact, Dhubri, this exclusion of Hindus from there has been happening for several decades now. When I looked at district-wise data, I thought I should look at the taluk-wise data and see what is happening in different outlets. And then I find that there are at least 8 taluks. There are many more where the Hindus have grown by almost zero. But there are 8 taluks where the Hindu growth was negative. There was actual absolute reduction in the number of Hindus in those taluks in that one decade. And reduction doesn't happen naturally. Reduction happens because they have been forced to leave their homes and go elsewhere. I sent this data, personally sent this data. I would have spoken about it. I would have sent to many people in Assam, many people who should be concerned, and they repeatedly requested that let us arrange a study of these taluks and at least let us document down who are the people who have been forced to leave, in what manner they have left, what has happened to where they have gone and settled. Why in a living society, forget about doing something about it, why will this not be studied? Why all these sociology departments, all these great social scientists of India, what are they doing if they are not looking at this massive phenomena happening before their eyes, which is being brought to their attention? Why would we not even study? Why would we not? If it had happened, the same thing happened to Muslims, our newspapers would have been full of the stories. We would have got detailed human interest stories, how different families have been forced to leave and in what difficult situations they are living. But this happens to Hindus, it's not a story. It's not a subject of study. That's why I said in the beginning that we are being persecuted, but we don't even realize that we are being persecuted. We don't care. We have come to the conclusion that this is the natural state of being Hindu. Being persecuted is the natural state of being Hindu, is what we have come to. And this is very surprising. That from the time I have started looking at this data, I keep wondering every day that what is wrong? Where have we? That if this kind of data doesn't stir us to any kind of action, for example, any kind of even ideation, even any kind of thinking, then what have we come to? Obviously, that means that we are designed to the fact that we will be prosecuted, and it is not really prosecution, it is the normal way of being. That is as far as the numbers go. But societies don't live by numbers alone. Numbers are the most important. But your heritage is important. The societies which lose their heritage, those societies are nothing is left of them. And I happen to go to various regions of Madhya Pradesh repeatedly. And Madhya Pradesh is very rich in archaeological heritage, partly because the Muslims did not have the same easy time there. They didn't reach many of those parts. Where they reached, there's nothing left. Most of North India, you don't find any temple. You don't even find a town which has been, or a village, which has been at the same place for the last 400 years. Every village in the northern part of India has been uprooted. We don't realize this. In fact, once I went around Haryana and kept asking people, can you tell me one village here which has been there at the same place for in the knowledge of their people, or the knowledge of the people of that village. Finally, after much asking, somebody told me in the Hisar district there is one village, and that is known to have stayed at the same place where it was originally established. I went to that village, and surprisingly, that village looked so much like a village in South India, in its layout, where the temple will be, where the cremation grounds will be, where the water bodies will be. There's a sense in which Indian people establish their villages, and you don't see that sense in the areas where Muslims had a go. And it will be true from Punjab up to Bihar, and perhaps up to Bengal, that there will be very, very few villages which have remained where they were originally established. And for Indians, notwithstanding all this talk about migration, they are running away, right? The fact is that the Indians do not like to leave their village. Even the villages, I've seen villages in the ravines, and 10 kilometers beyond those ravines will be fertile Ganga Maidan. In hundreds years of their existence, they have not moved from that ravine to the much more fertile Ganga Maidan. They have stuck there. Because village where you have established, that matters. They move only when they are forcibly moved out. And all of North India, much of North India, but I was talking about the archaeological heritage. Madhya Pradesh has a lot of archaeological heritage. And I wanted to show how we are taking. In fact, Archaeological Survey of India seemed to have written, perhaps it is written down, but certainly, and there is an unwritten rule, that anything of the Mughal period, Muslim period, and anything of the British period will be lovingly preserved. But anything of the period prior to the Mughal invasion, Muslim invasion, not Mughal, Islamic invasion of India, that unless it happens to be something which has been already conserved during the British time, we are not going to bother about it. And those monuments which we don't want to bother about tell the story of the great India that was there before the Islamic invasion took place. And those extraordinary monuments, you go to a small village and suddenly you see something of such grandeur, and there will not be a peon to look after it. There will not be a chowkidar to look after it. I'll show you some of those things. This is a sun temple at a place called Umri in Tikamda district. It's of the Vakatka period, one of the earliest royal periods of India, of this nature. And this temple is so beautiful even in this state of neglect. This forgettable Khajuraho, it will compare with any one of the great temples of South India, and is perhaps earlier than those. When I went to that place, first time I could not reach because there was a small stream which I could not pass through. So when I made the second attempt, I reached, it happened to be the days of Ram Navami. And the people of the village, of course, have a sense that this temple is great. And if they could, they will try to maintain it. But they said, how can we maintain it? So they were building a small temple next to it, the kind they can maintain. But of course, they were also doing a Ram Navami puja that day. We had a good prasadam. And then there was a boy, and he said, I am doing MSc in archaeology. And then he told, sir, there was a great deity inside, the deity of the sun on its 7 horses inside this temple. I have not brought it inside, now it is vacant. He says, when I was in 8th standard, that deity was stolen. And what did the ASI do? I don't even know whether it's under ASI right now. There was no notes. They removed the chowkidar who was there and outsourced the upkeep of this temple. And then that outsourced chowkidar came to me and he told me, sir, for the last 8 years, I have not been given a penny. This is how you take care of this kind of structures. They will go. They are there because they are so strong, so well built, that in spite of our neglect, they don't just collapse. Just like the Hindu society, it's so well built. It's such a long tradition. It's such a deep foundations that in spite of all the persecution and all the neglect, it doesn't go under. But in due time, everything goes under if it is uncared for. Even this will go under if we leave it the way. And that boy, that village, kept asking me, sir, you have seen it now. What are you going to do about it? What could I tell them? There's nothing that I can do about it because the government of India or the government of Madhya Pradesh don't want to do anything about it. I can stop at any time because this will be unending. This is very near us, about 100 kilometers from here. This is one of the minor edicts of King Ashoka. And this is considered one of the more important edicts because there are only 2 edicts where he has put his personal name there. That Devanam Priya Priyadarshi Ashok Rajasya Anushasana jo bhi hai. Most of the others edicts, his personal name is not there. In this and the one more where his person maski, where his personal name is there. The other important thing about this is that the message, which in his minor edict, some of them, this message gets repeated. Here it's much more beautifully written. Message is very simple. He's saying that for the last 2 years, I have been exerting to see that dharma prevails in this land. And I have been telling people that dharma is important. It can be followed by the great as well as by the not so great. It will be followed by the rich and the poor alike. And I have been repeatedly telling them, please follow dharma. Please mingle with the devas and live ever happily. That's the message. I went to this place. Going there was not easy. And those villagers came with me. The path to the place passes through private lands. So there's really no path marked out in the place. So we had to take people and request the cultivators to let us pass through the field. And then we reached there. Fortunately, this small shed has been put on top. At some stage, it was completely cracking. But that is not much of a covering in the open. And this village, this Gujjarra village, it is historical because of this edict. But this Gujjarra village is half Gujars and half scheduled caste people. And the scheduled caste boys told me that this is ours because Ashok Raja is ours. So they have made a small society which there is some name Ashok Raj Dharma Sansthan ya kuch aisa banaya hai. And we meet once a year and hold a function near this. Utsav karte hain. And they said, but this is ours, but we don't know what it means. Nobody has come and told us what is the meaning of this thing written here. And how in the world? Well, what does it take? This kind of 20s of boulders are lying around it. It takes nothing at all to engrave in Devanagari the same thing and put a good Hindi translation on another boulder next to it. At least people know, and it's such a beautiful message to give. But that we will do if we were concerned about our heritage. If we thought that our heritage matters. If it doesn't matter, I have brought it to the attention of the ministers there. I believe it would have gone to the attention of the chief minister. But there's no urgency in even doing something as small as this. It doesn't cost anything. And people will know. And everywhere I go, people there are so concerned that this is ours. This is our heritage. But as Hindus, it is not our heritage. We are unconcerned. Let me give some more examples. This I really want you to see. There is a place called Antari, just outside Gwalior. About 10 kilometers outside Gwalior. And this in Antari, there are several historical issues associated with Antari. One is that the last fight that Rani Jhansi put up, the forces before the engagement started from Antari. There's a great fort was there from where the forces started. And there's Mahaji Sindhya, one of the greatest Marathas in North India, whose widows lived in Antri. Later. And another important thing happened in Antri. There's Bir Singh Bundela, who is actually a legendary figure of Bundelkhand. He murdered Abu Fazl near Antri. He murdered Abu Fazl was one of the Navaratnas of Akbar, and very dear to Akbar. And after he was murdered, Akbar tried for 3 years to get him arrested. Bir Singh Bundela could not be arrested. That was he's really legendary figure. A great builder, great ruler, and great warrior. Bir Singh Bundela killed Abu Fazl, and this is the Maqbara of Abu Fazl. I went with my students to that Antri and told them that we are going there. We know that there is a history associated with it. And we also know that this Abu Fazl's Maqbara is there. We knew this beforehand. But I can tell you, when we go there, you will see Abu Fazl's Maqbara, but you will not see anything of the Maratha time. And they said, sir, you keep talking like this. How can that happen? And we went there, and about a kilometer before this, there are the signs of, on the houses of the Antri village, there are signs of the ASI, protected area. Within a kilometer of this, you have to do nothing. And this Maqbara is nothing. This is only a cubic structure. This is of no archaeological value. But they have built a beautiful garden around it. Very lovingly it is preserved. So I told them, you have seen this. Now let's go and ask what happened to the place where the widows of Mahaji Sindhya lived. And we went around, we asked the people, they said, oh, there's that Tehsil building, maybe that is the place. Or there's that place. And then I found a teacher of history. And he tells me, sir, oh, you're talking about that? Us par to bulldozer chal raha hai. They took me to where the bulldozer was. I said, what are you doing? He said, we need a place for building a stadium. So we have put the bulldozer. So there was nothing left. There was actually, he showed me the plain land where this was there. Now this is the situation of our heritage. Our physical heritage is being destroyed in this manner. What is there to preserve in this thing? Just a plaque there saying that Abu Fazl was interned here would have been good enough. Because this is another very important, it marks a very important period of Indian history. This is the fort of Salbai. This is also near Gwalior. If we go around India, everywhere you will find places like that. And I have from many areas, but I want to show you some of that. Salbai is, I don't know what kind of history is taught today. Earlier, when history was taught, Salbai was mentioned. Because Salbai is where this great treaty between Mahaji Sindhya and the British took place. It's called the Treaty of Salbai. And by that treaty, Mahaji got west to the south of Jamuna. Mahaji was given free hand. The British retreated to and they were very worried that they have been they have been forced to make such a retreat. But there was another thing, because Mahaji, they retreated, but they also tricked Mahaji into accepting a British resident in the Gwalior court. So the system of resident in Indian courts begins with the Treaty of Salbai. But this was also perhaps one of the major defeats inflicted upon the British by the Marathas, one of the last major defeats inflicted upon the Marathas, by the Marathas on the British. So when I went to Salbai, this place is, you see how great ramparts are there, but it's just completely deserted. There's nothing to take care of, it's just decaying. And there are temples, beautiful temples inside, several structures inside, but everything is decaying. And we went to that village, this is in the hill, and below is the village of Salbai. And when he came back, there were this 6-7 villagers sitting on a charpai. And they asked me, "Sab Salbai dekh liya?" I said कि आने वही देखने आए थे. Said कि स्कूल की किताब में पढ़ा होगा. हाँ पढ़ा तो है. देख रहे हैं क्या हालत है. क्यों होनी चाहिए ये हालत? This is our own country. Why should we write history books without giving pictures of this? How else do you read history unless you associate it with the physical space? Why are we destroying this physical space of ours? And this is persecution to the limit. When we intentionally start destroying the physical space of a civilization. This is Kakarsiha in Sindhi district, extreme interior. I read in the Gazetteer that there used to be 17 temples on this small hillock. And the Gazetteer is about 100 years old, 150 years old perhaps. He's saying, but really not much is left. There is one little thing left. And I searched for it and reached there. There's nothing left. There's only this small structure which somebody has put up, and the pillars of the great temples that were there have been piled together, made into a small temple. These things are lying around. And the place looks historic. Once you go there, it's such a beautiful, it's a prominent place from where you can see a vast area around. Only that gular tree is so grand there, which remains grand even now. And there was a sadhu living on that. He would also do some dhoop bath in the morning to all these things. And he asked me, "Sir, aapne dekh liya na? Kuch karne wale hain kya?" This question our historians don't ask. Our politicians don't ask. But everyone there asks this. कि कुछ करने वाले हैं इसके बारे में क्या? I think I should not go on this because, this. This is Malwai in Alirajpur district, which is a very remote, very poor, 100% Adivasi, nearly 100% Adivasi district, 100% Bhil. This would have been built, I think, 12th or 13th century, 11th century maybe. Look at the beauty of it. How will a poor area, and you cannot say that, as our modern historians keep telling, that all these great structures were built by oppressive Oriental despots, by extracting money from their poor subjects. This could not have happened here because Bhils have always ruled themselves. They never allowed any despot to rule over them. Only, I think the British were also not able to reach that area, open up that area. Only in the modern times, our SPs and IGs have been able to try to break their spirit. But so if this is built by the efforts and resources of that area, and which will also mean, I'll just tell them that later. I'll call later. Which will also mean that this area must be very rich. It was very rich, and it's unimaginable. In fact, nobody told me that there's a place like this. I was going from Alirajpur towards Gujarat, and I saw this on the way suddenly in the early morning, and I kept returning to that place. I would have gone and photographed that 20 times perhaps, because it's so impressive. And there's not a chowkidar to look after it. Not even a single chowkidar to look after it. And this will decay. This is in Madhya Pradesh. It's the border of Gujarat. It's the border of Gujarat. And then I realized there is not one, there are tens of such structures there. And this is the one somehow got preserved. And I looked around and there was this, which almost similar but half decayed. And these are the carvings inside. That is an Akalava, which is just on the Gujarat border. This was in Jhabua. And this Akalva was a perhaps 5 square kilometer site where be various kind of structures. And there's nobody to look after. What are we trying to do with this country? So it's not merely numbers, just our physical space we have no respect for, and the Hindu space we are destroying. We are, I think this is all here. So this is the physical space, not our mental space. What are we doing to it? I remember, and I think after this I'll stop because that is. In this great Romila Thapar decided to rewrite the school textbooks of social sciences. The textbooks before that were not modern, but they were not ideological. They were giving us some information. This lights can be switched on. Yeah. They were giving us some information. At least not putting the child, the boy or the girl, against his history, against his civilization. These books that we teach to our students, young students, they are designed to make a child hate himself. I'll just give you one example. There is this Gupta period of India. When we were in school, it was called the Swarna Yuga. That word has been banned because there cannot be a Swarna Yuga of India. It's not used. The moment you use it, they'll say, what are you talking about? What golden age? So this book doesn't use that. The 7th standard, I think. But when it talks about Gupta period, there is one great source about Gupta period. There's the Fahiyan who visited India and wrote down what he saw. And Fahiyan could not have been ideological at his time. And fortunately, that record is preserved. So anybody writing history has to refer to that, cannot ignore it. So she also quotes from Fahiyan, where it is said that this society is greatly harmonious, that they are very prosperous. They don't even have locks on their houses because nobody does any thieving. She writes that quotes very, very unhappily. She puts that quote, which many of us would have read. Then she says, but this cannot be true. Because we know that the Indian society was hierarchical. We know that there were untouchables in the Indian society. So how could it be harmonious? So Fahiyan cannot be right. Now, can you teach a child of standard 7 in this manner? And what contrary evidence to Fahiyan she has, except her own words? She is imposing her words against the words of Fahiyan, who was the person at the time on the ground, and is imposing her theory against the observed facts of Fahiyan. You can perhaps do it in some kind of historiography, in some high-level research work. But can you do it in 7th class textbook? And this goes on. I have said it many times, and I can say it again, that in any self-respecting country, the parents will go and burn the school if this kind of texts are taught? How will you allow your children to be taught in this manner? This is a persecution, this is a mental persecution of the extreme kind. But we allow, we don't even care. In fact, every time I read my child, now I don't have to read my child's books, but when I used to read, I used to boil. That what are we trying to teach our children? Where in the world children will be taught in this manner about their own society, about their own civilization, about their own history? That is what the kind of mental persecution we are going to. We take it very lightly. And it's no wonder that at the end of the day, most of our children, if they are doing well, and if they have been so well provided with this society that they pass through the IITs, then they buy a ticket to US. And because we have taught them that India is no place to be in. That's what we are teaching them day in and day out. We don't even teach them our own numerals. We don't teach them our language from class. I think I'll stop at this. I'll just there's a great political scientist, old friend, very old person of mine. He is one of the founders of social sciences in India. I'll just quote him and then stop. Last time I met him, and
What's his name?
I'll give you later. It's not be right to take the name. Last time I met him, and he said, Bajaj, I have no reason to live anymore. I only every morning get up and see what should let me pass through. Because societies are built on relationships and interactions. And this society and those relationships are built on family, on language, on larger conglomerations. So that we had long ago lost the community. Grammar was lost. The community was lost. But now I see the family is not there because the language is not there, and if the language is not there, there is no family. And if the family is not there, the language is not there, there are no larger connectivities, then there is no society. This is a conglomeration of individuals which means nothing. So that's why they are going away. That is the level we have come to. That's the level we have come to because it's the long series of persecutions have brought us to this stage. And it's high time, and perhaps the government can do it, that we get out of it. This is unending. This is unending. We should make some great effort to preserve our physical spaces, preserve our numbers, preserve our mental equanimity, and preserve our connectivity with each other, preserve our sampradaya, preserve our grammar, preserve our samudaya. Otherwise, we may keep saying, and I do believe this, that India does not go under. But it doesn't go under because every generation does its duty. If several generations in a series refuse to do their duty, then we cannot keep saying that it will not go under. Let me stop at this point. Thank you.
Big round of applause. Just now, may I next call upon our next speaker for the day, Dr. Anirban on the stage, please. Yeah, we should. So, Dr. Anirban Ganguly has contributed immensely in the field of studying Sri Aurobindo's life and work and is a recognized authority in the field. He was a research fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation, or VIF, New Delhi. Dr. Ganguly is now the director of the Shyamaprasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, Delhi. His recent work is a well-researched monograph on Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Dr. Ganguly is also frequent columnist and authors at various media outlets like Rediff, Pioneer, and I'm proud to say IndiaFacts and CRI. His body of work is as vast as it is well researched, with scrupulous adherence to facts. Dr. Ganguly, it's an honor for us to invite you to address the.
Thank you. In front of Dr. Bajaj, should not be giving such an introduction, really. I don't know really, I mean, it's such a fascination to listen to him. And the entire program is given. We have to preserve our physical, our mental, our traditional, our paramparik spaces. I don't know whether there's anything more to be said after this, because it's a program for generations, basically. I mean, I look at it this way, perhaps in our time, now that Jadunath Sarkar, R.C. Majumdar, etc. are not there, in our time, if one talks about the need for, if one needs to look up to a group of scholars, and at least among them a scholar who's approachable on the issue on Indian civilizational studies, and that is, I think, Dr. Bajaj. His work on demography really awakened us. And that's just one aspect. I have not, I just will very informally share some ideas, because I thought that with eminent speakers here, it's better that we have a lot of focused intake of issues that concern the topic today. And so that has been done. And Sandeep has a bad habit, he keeps calling me for his program. So I've also given him an ultimatum that next time we should find some other speaker. Solid structure of mutual amity and understanding cannot be built on the quicksands of false history and political expediency. R.C. Majumdar, one of those historians who spoke about the... Is there? Yes. But...
Or you boycotted me.
No, I was too embarrassed. I was very embarrassed.
I put up such a performance.
He's my old friend, so I take him for granted. I mean, actually, all are my friends, so I take everybody for granted.
Now I can freely speak then, because
Absolutely.
I'll be protected by... I'll quickly make a few points, because now, obviously, we have now something to look forward to after Dr. Bajaj's talk, so I'll not stand in between you and... There has to be, and organizations like IndiaFacts and other serious research organizations must focus on this. We have to develop our own corpus of, if I can use the word, Holocaust literature. We are very bad at documentation. And for example, the series of pogroms that have taken place in Bangladesh, East Pakistan, and now Bangladesh, ending with 2001, when the major pogrom took place in October post the BNP election. We do not have documented, we do not have proper documentation of these episodes. And that starts right from 1950s. So perhaps you can look at that. The other is, this is one aspect, but there's entirely another genre, another dimension. The other day, I think Open Magazine always wakes up quite late, and there was this columnist who wrote on Madhushree Mukherjee's book, Churchill's Secret War. That book had come out about 3 to 4 years back. And it's about the 1943 famine. So we do not have documentations on this. Then, for example, do we know that, during there was the Bengal famine on one side, then there was this entire tidal wave which affected Midnapur. Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was at that time finance minister in the Bengal government. He resigned because, among other issues, one of the main issues was that succor relief was being withheld to the people of Midnapur just because there was a free Azad Hind government running there, not connected with Netaji, but it was other group of revolutionaries who had declared independence, and they were obviously mostly Hindus. And so that is why they dared to do that. But we have no documentation of that, except that book speaks to a certain extent about that. But I'm sure there are archival material which is there for scholars to unearth. So we need to look at these episodes in history, document, bring out series, have discussions, disseminate. This has not been done. And in the present times, perhaps some organization, some group can take up this responsibility of bringing out an annual status of Hindus report. And this report needs to look at the status and condition of Hindus anywhere in the world. So for example, we get only sermonized by the USCIRF report. They tell us what to do, not to do. Similarly, we should have our own reports, region-wise, country-wise report, which should attain that level of credibility where a serious note is taken. So these were some points that I wanted to basically share with you. And today the scenario in West Bengal, and Meenakshi ji is there, she is the right person to dwell on that. The scenario in West Bengal today is very precarious. It's an interesting irony of history that those Hindus who were persecuted in East Bengal, East Pakistan, came to Calcutta as refugees. And then they turned into communists and Marxists. So it's very interesting, and Prafulla Chakravarti in his Marginal Men, this is a seminal book which, again, one of the few seminal books which discusses persecution, displacement, and demographic change. He says that it was a very interesting, ironical situation where you had Shyama Prasad Mukherjee talking about the Bengali Hindus who were being made refugees in their own land, and these refugees coming to Calcutta, to West Bengal, and turning into communists, and then undertaking processions against Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, who was advocating sanctions against Pakistan. So a Bengali historian, not of our thought category, a very secular historian, and whatever that may mean, once was asked this question, that why does the Bengali Hindu behave in such a peculiar manner, that the majority, in fact, there was this famous PWD minister in the state of West Bengal who was one of the tallest communist leaders and also one of the most well-known refugees, whose father was given a choice while in East Bengal after partition, either you convert or you get shot, whichever. He was finally shot because he refused to get converted. And I'm talking from history. And he came and he turned into a communist. So this historian had to say, he said that, this is a kind of perhaps Stockholm syndrome, where you where you realize that you have been unable to protect your space and you had to leave your space, so it's better that you try and forget that. So Shyama Prasad Mukherjee was obviously, and 23rd is his 61st martyrdom day, he was an uncompromising champion of the persecuted Hindus from East Pakistan and all over the region also. And it's very interesting that we know that Patel gave this proposal that there should be separate space carved out from East Pakistan for those Hindus who are being persecuted and are coming to West Bengal. And obviously he, N.V. Gadgil, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, nearly the entire cabinet was in accordance with what Sardar Patel said. But obviously Nehru thought it was a fantastic idea and why should it happen? They'll all go back in any case, etc., etc. So the history of persecution in West Bengal now continues. And rightly, it's just because there was this team which went 15 days back, it brought into focus the actual condition that is prevailing on the ground. Now, this is the same case in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Of course, Dr. Sandeep has mentioned, documentation is very much required. Because I keep harping on that by nature, I keep trying to document these things. Documentation is essential for us to take forward our narrative. And unless that is done, I think we'll be just talking in the air and not being able to present our case in a systematic manner. Now, I'll just end with a quote which should, I think, make us think, and that is essentially, drawing a little further from what Dr. Bajaj ended, that what kind of history should we really teach? And it has been the habit to obviously delineate, express a certain line of thinking, and you marginalize the other section. You don't even give it space to express the other point of view. So there's this very interesting observation. Dr. P.V. Kane, legendary historian of the Dharma Shastra, was given the Bharat Ratna by Nehru's government. So in no way is he what we are, communal. He was a very secular historian because he was given Bharat Ratna by. So in 1953, in his address to the Indian History Congress, Dr. Kane made a very interesting observation. And I think basically we need to reflect on this and then decide our course of action as it should be. On the one hand, documentation, and on the other hand, as you said, that if we can take up these projects where we can relook at episodes in Indian history, which you are already doing in your own way. And I'll just conclude with this. So Dr. Kane says something very interesting. He says there is a possibility of grave harm that might be done to true history by government action. He was talking in 1953. By political parties, politically minded citizens, and mere theorists. Please remember that R.C. Majumdar also had to finally leave the official committee in order to write the real history of India or the real history of the Indian freedom movement. K.M. Munshi and Birla came to his aid so he could really salvage that project. But he did it on his own. Historians, political propaganda had often made use of history as a medium. Historians may become instruments of politicians and might not afford to summon courage to tell the truth. That was the template set by the Nehruvian consensus. Recently, I had occasion to read the report of the Zakir Hussain Committee on Basic National Education. The National Education document has a lot that is useful in it, but Dr. P.V. Kane is just talking about its aspect of teaching history. That report stated that as the Indian nation had adopted non-violence as the method for achieving all-round freedom, Indian children would need to be taught the superiority of non-violence over violence. Fine. That a simple outline of Indian history should be given, that the chief landmarks in the social and cultural life of the people should be stressed, and the gradual movement towards greater political and cultural unity be shown, and that emphasis should be laid on the ideals of love, truth, and justice, and on the lessons drawn from life, showing the superiority of truth and non-violence in all its phases and its concomitant virtues over violence and deceit. There can be as such no issue with this approach, but I inquired into several booksellers for a copy of textbook of Indian history in English, Hindustani or Marathi, meant for students in the primary or secondary stages and written on the lines indicated in the report above mentioned. I could not secure such a copy. Such a textbook would, I am afraid, be guilty of suppressio veri and suggestio falsi. I believe that no honest history can be written about Indian history based on the principles stated in the report referred to above, particularly for the period from about AD 1200 to AD 1920. It would be better not to teach any history to students for the period before 1947 at all, rather than teach a garbled version of history. So that the subjection AD 1200 till you don't talk about this subjection, if you don't talk about this loss of your mental and physical space, then you'll never know that you are a challenged civilization, that you are a challenged people, that you are a challenged tradition. So therefore, one of the main challenges before understanding our status as a civilization is to also relook, and I'll not use the word rewrite because again a lot of other things will start. I'll just to relook at our narration of our history and our past. So anyway, these are some ideas that I had in mind, and thank you so much for tolerating me or giving me the opportunity. And thank you.
If you don't mind, I have one question. We'll come to the Q&A later. Someone you all know, Srimati Meenakshi Lekhi. She is a member of Parliament, New Delhi, a seat that she won recently with a thumping majority. Srimati Lekhi needs no introduction, but to go through the motions. She's a Supreme Court lawyer and a prominent spokesperson of the BJP. Over a long and solid legal career, she has been responsible for drafting several key bills like the Women's Reservation Bill and has done some good work on workplace sexual harassment. Mrs. Lekhi, it's an honor having you here. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Balakrishnan, Mr. Ganguly, and Dr. Bajaj. Thank you very much. And when we discuss genocide of Hindus, I find a term which is not used at all. Nobody uses the word genocide, isn't it? So, as if nothing wrong has ever happened to Hindus, number one. Number two, when you look at Hindus civilizationally, a very strange time frame. I'll say you want to look at 50 years of civilization, you want to look at 100 years of civilizational history, you want to look at 1,000 years of civilizational history, we are a shrinking civilization. All the pagans, whether it was the West, where certain discoveries are being made about people who are dressed like Krishna, people who are dressed with the bows and arrows, people who look like Ram, Sita, Lakshman, those coins, those wares are being found. And that is assigned to pre-Roman pagan history. Interesting point. Now, whether they were Hindus, and ultimately who's a Hindu? Somebody who doesn't believe in Islam, somebody who doesn't believe in Christianity, somebody who does not believe in Abrahamic religion is a Hindu, so far as Hindus are concerned. Because even a non-believer is a Hindu. You can choose to be what? As long as you don't believe in Abrahamic religion, that means from Christian's perspective, you're a non-believer. From Islamic perspective, you're a kafir. And for others' perspective, you believe in whatever you feel like is a Hindu. And that freedom of thought or that freedom of following what one feels like exists only in one set of value system, which broadly can be either described as Sanatan, as some of us may like to call it, or Hindus as the post-47 era may like to call it. 3 countries were made out of one large landmass. And that is, in historical sense, it's a very recent history. So you can go back to 1947, the first partition, which created 2 countries. You can go back to 1972, 71, 72, which created another nation. Now, if you look at the history of these 3 areas, you'll find, interestingly, statistically, 14 to 15% Hindus existed in the region which is now called Pakistan. in my mind space, it is still Hindustan, because the Indus Valley civilization to whatever else is in that geographical area. Now, 14 to 15% Hindus have been reduced to less than 1% in that landmass. That should be bothersome. And if that is not genocide, what is genocide? Which is now Pakistan, right? 1947 till 2014, 15% population, which at a stable figure could have remained 15%, more or less, has reduced itself to 1%. That's one stat. The second stat is the other country which was created out of that Pakistan in 1971-72 had Hindu population at measuring to about 38% in 1972. From 38%, it has brought itself down to 7.2%. And I'm sure it is less than that today. If this is not genocide, then what is genocide? And the strange part is that this is not labeled as genocide. Nobody even writes, no Amnesty International, no UNHCR report, nothing at all. Nothing at all. Now, this is the story of areas which was earlier Bharatvarsh and a very recent history. If we go to the Mahasagar Ilaka, Hind Mahasagar, and the other civilizations around that area, Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, everyone was somewhere connected to Hinduism and was a Hindu nation. That has completely changed. And that is your 70, 80 years of history. So within a span of a few decades, if this is not shrinking civilization, what is shrinking civilization and what is genocide? Because if we still go back to ancient times and medieval times, the civilization could still, because what was Pakistan? It was Hindustan as recently as till 1947. Then beyond Afghanistan, the Kampuchea, so on and so forth, this was entire Hindu civilization. So Hindus as a social group have shrunk. The genocide of Hindus is happening constantly. If I come back to the original aspect, that which are the pockets we are living in? A very small island called Bali in Indonesia. So entire Indonesia has been restricted to one small island. A very, very minuscule number in Malaysia, a very minuscule number, where even the laws are treating them differently. In my own country, where ideally, which is so-called secular country, I should have been at the same percentage as I was in 1947. But 2011 census report has not even been published. Because if it gets published...
Where did you get it published?
Sir, I'll come to that. I'll come to that. That's right. Right. So the point I'm making is 2011 has not even been published, because once it gets published, you will see the shrinking number of Hindus even within this country. And shrinking numbers as demographically, because I have read the book, I have read more than what is being circulated these days. I've read Dr. Bajaj's work from a very long time. I've been his follower. So demographically, even district by district, we are reducing in numbers. If you analyze this entire episode, this is nothing but genocide, which should be studied scientifically with statistics so that at least we are in a position to make a case. I am mentally in a position to make a case because I follow it. And as Dr. Ganguly was stating, the importance of documentation, I can quote one book for all of you, those who are interested in reading, a book by Richard Benkin, which is on Bangladesh. And I think a similar book should come out if we restrict ourselves to Jammu and Kashmir. If we look at Assam, we look at the eastern frontier, any of the states, you just pick it up. The Vanvasi has today been made to follow Abrahamic religion, one way or the other. I have nothing against Abrahamic religions, but my problem is the meticulous manner in which they follow the policy of conversions is unhealthy. That is my problem. And when all those things happen, they are not happening not without a plan. And it is in that plan, things like Joshua 2002, in a planned way, the certain religious structures will come up on Bangladesh-India border. The even man-woman violence can have religious color. Hindu Munanis can be killed in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and there is no recording of the fact. The BJP workers will be killed and assaulted in West Bengal. It is this coloration which is disturbing. It is this which causes pain to a person like me. Because I feel I am civilizationally open to whichever religion you choose to follow. Because I believe in polytheism. But do others follow that? Others follow only one form of God is the right form of God. Others follow only one book is the correct book. Only one way of life is the right way. Now, those people who are preaching me plurality are the ones who don't follow the principle of plurality. That is my difficulty. And it is in this context that what Dr. Anirban Ganguly stated, that documentation becomes very relevant. Documentation of two sides. The atrocities which are happening on Hindus in our own country, because today we are restricted only within our country. And if you go up to the population ratio, actually our numbers have reduced even in our country. And if you go district-wise, meticulous study, again our numbers have reduced. And that is where the term genocide comes from. Doing away with certain civilizational groups, doing away with some ethnic group, doing away with certain religious groups. It is this particular religion which gives you the freedom to follow your heart, even to follow Abrahamic religion. That freedom exists. I mean, if I go to a mosque, I go to a church, it's not as if my being a Hindu will be less accepted by my co-religious friends. No, it will not be. I can still go to the temple. I can still be cremated. I may have never gone to the temple. I am still considered a Hindu. So it is this freedom which is mostly misused to convert. Because for a Hindu, even a non-believer is a Hindu. But no other religion gives you that freedom. You have to follow certain tenements, you have to do a certain things, you have to worship in a certain way, you have to do certain, strict rules. then only you belong to that. So it's an exclusivist approach. Here it's a inclusive approach that you be whoever, but you can still continue to be a Hindu. You can still think of Ganga Jal when you die, and you can still think of having a funeral pyre, and your family can still follow the religious rule, and you may choose not to follow that rule all your life. And the strange part is that when genocide of Hindus is happening in many northeastern states and also up north, many districts within each state, there is not even a voice and there is not even a whisper in my country. Around the areas which have been carved out, which have been made into new countries, are civilizationally mine. Those were the bedrocks which gave us the Indus Valley civilization, which gave us the medieval India, where Mir Zafars and so many others fought. Entire history is in those areas. But today, that land does not belong to me. And strange enough, I don't want to make it very communally sensitive statement, but cow slaughter is unique to this belt. It's unique because Middle East, from where the Islam and other religions came, there were no cows. Those are desert lands. So cows and the calves and other such creatures didn't exist in that area. And their food necessity could be whatever. So they ate whatever was available for food. And there was obviously less vegetarianism because there was less vegetation. But this was the land of vegetation due to Ganges and Yamunas and everything. And thus cow was a revered animal and economically sound practice to have cows because it was a economically sensible and viable media. And it is strange that change in religion makes you even kill your economy. And cow slaughter with a vengeance is carried on in this belt. If this is not genocide, what else is genocide? Will be my question. And unfortunately, even UNHCR has done no work because it makes no civilizational impact on others, and they don't even want you to think in that perspective. Because it's all about controlling minds. It's all about making you less confident about your own ideology. And strange enough that if these ideas are explored at economic and several other layered levels, we will understand the kind of mental subjugation Hindus have gone through and are still going through, because Spain, US, UK, you go through any other place, you see the yoga studios. And strange that yoga today is a secular knowledge. It is not a Hindu knowledge. Because which other religion does the Surya Namaskar? Who tells you there is Nadi Yoga? Who tells you that the infinite exists in your own system? Microcosm and macrocosm. Who talks about all this? But yoga is taken out and made into secular study and not a Hindu study. Similarly, Bharatnatyam, a dance which was practiced in temples, is today converted into varied dance forms and the de-recognition of the fact that this was a temple dance and it came from Hindu religion is taken out, made into a secular dance form. Similarly, Ayurveda. I mean, who was Chakra? Who were Charak, Sushruta, Samhita, so on and so forth, Patanjali? Who were these people? Did they or did they not come from Hinduism? Was Hinduism based on scientific knowledge or not? Is the haldi is taken out, the chandan is taken out and converted into secular property and patented. All the herbs are going westwards and coming back in powdered forms to me. So I think we all need to give a deeper thought that usurpation of the knowledge is happening to give it different color. Many Babas and others will be sitting, selling the name of God, but not really caring for the Hindu plight. And many Hindus have lost the confidence and knowledge for knowing who they are and what they are about. And the knowledge even of Sanskrit is going away from my school syllabus. So I think these are the foundations I, as a person, would like to explore and see what is possible and where all one can make an impact. And impact or whatever is one point, but at least have the sense to understand what my ancestors have gone through the generations. What has been my history? Now, if I understand myself historically and I make others understand that, look, whichever religion you may come from, but you are actually the sons and the daughters of great rishis. Whatever you are following today is probably the pain your ancestors had to go through. And there was, in fact, forced conversion, which happened. It'll act as a bridge and it'll tell everyone the pain and the plight of Hindus. That civilizationally, the wounds that they have, and some of them still are carrying. A lot of them have been made to forget, and their existence has been undermined, that they themselves choose to speak a different language than the proud Hindu language, will cease to exist, and it will become a proud nation, and it will give us the foundation which we all are looking forward to, and make India the Shresth Bharat one keeps harping on, because Shresth has to first have a mind space and then come into action. Until unless you carry that idea of existence, and that is where I admire the Jews. But Jews were also the lambs, like us, basically, who went through the slaughter process, kept going for the slaughter, and suddenly realized that they either be lions and face up to it, or they'll get diminished and not exist. So face up to whatever circumstances are prevailing, whatever games are going around, because it's all about controlling the resource of this country. And the resource can be mental resource, the resource can be civilizational resource, the knowledge, which I always called the soft resource. It is soft because it doesn't have the masculinity of fighting back. But it is a hard resource because that's the hardest to procure. And once you control the intelligence, you control the minds you automatically control the minerals and the mines, which are easy to control anyway. Thank you, friends. I would like everyone to think about the certain words I've thrown into the public view, and let's see where we can take it forward and at least start thinking of what's going on around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Srimati Rekhi, for this short but thoughtful speech. Now, our last call upon stage is slightly a different one. I would like to call upon stage Dr. Umendra Ratnu, who is a surgeon based out of Jaipur. Dr. Ratnu has been instrumental in doing some excellent groundwork in the areas of relief and related work for Hindu refugees coming in from Pakistan. He has travelled here all the way from Jaipur just to attend the seminar and will now share some brief aspects of his work. He is Dr. Ratnu.
अगर मैं अपनी बात हिंदी में कहूँ तो चलेगा, क्योंकि हिंदू होने का मेरे लिए जो पहला अर्थ होता है और जो पहला मेंटल स्पेस मैं देता हूँ किसी दूसरे सिविलाइजेशन को, वो है जब मैं उसकी भाषा का प्रयोग करता हूँ अपने भावों को अभिव्यक्त करने में। फिर भी मैं अंग्रेज़ी बोल सकता हूँ, तो जैसी सभा की हिंदी। मैं एक सर्जन हूँ पेशे से और मैं अपना नैरेटिव सुनाने नहीं आया हूँ। मेरे संस्कार जो थे बचपन से मेरे दादा पिता के बीच में ऐसे रहे कि मैं हिंदू रीति रिवाजों के बीच में ही पला बड़ा हूँ। पाकिस्तान में जो हिंदुओं की दुर्दशा है उसके बारे में मेरी शुरू से दिलचस्पी थी, करना भी चाहता था बहुत कुछ, लेकिन यहाँ बैठे बैठे हम कुछ कर नहीं पाते थे। बस पीड़ा होती थी, वैचारिक आदान प्रदान होता था और हम बैठे रह जाते थे। फिर मेरा जय आहूजा मेरे साथ आए हुए हैं, मेरे मित्र हैं। जय का एक संगठन है सीमांत लोक संगठन, लोक सीमांत संगठन, और उसको चलाने वाले हैं श्री हिंदू सिंह जी सोढ़ा। हिंदू सिंह जी 1971 में पाकिस्तान से यहाँ पर आए थे और उन्होंने क्रांतिकारी काम किया है पाकिस्तान से हिंदुओं को यहाँ लाने का, उन्हें नागरिकता दिलाने का, उनकी रोज़मर्रा की परेशानियों को हल करने का। सीमांत लोक संगठन से मैं पिछले 1.5-2 साल से जुड़ा हूँ, लेकिन मैं चूँकि एक पेशेवर आदमी हूँ, प्रोफेशनल हूँ, तो मेरे अपने भय थे कि मैं अगर बहुत खुला अगर पाकिस्तानी हिंदुओं के साथ आइडेंटिफाई करता हूँ अपने आप को, तो कल को मुझे ISI का एजेंट नहीं लेबल कर दिया जाए। तो जो टर्निंग पॉइंट आया हमारे इस आंदोलन में वो आया जब राज्य के चुनाव में बीजेपी ने इस बात को अपने इलेक्शन घोषणा पत्र में रखा। वो मेरे जीवन का सबसे सुखद दिन था और उसके बाद तो खैर अब राष्ट्रीय उसमें घोषणा पत्र में भी ये बात उठ चुकी है। तो अब यह एक राजनीतिक कैपिटल है, हमारा राजनीतिक क्षमता हमारे पास आ गई है कि इस मुद्दे को अब हम अच्छी तरह ज़मीन पे लड़ेंगे। वी आर द फुट सोल्जर्स, ज़मीन पे तो लड़ाई हमें लड़नी पड़ेगी, लेकिन अब हमें एक दिशा मिल गई है। हिंदुओं की जो दुर्दशा, जो सबसे बड़ा जो कारण मेरी साधारण बुद्धि के हिसाब से रहा है, वो रहा है नेतृत्व का अभाव। हम ट्रिकल्स में काम करते हैं, बाबा रामदेव कहीं कुछ कर रहे हैं, नीचे निश्चलानंद सरस्वती कुछ कर रहे हैं, नरेशाचार्य कुछ कर रहे हैं, संघ बेचारा करता है अपनी तरफ से कुछ कोशिश, लेकिन वो भी टुकड़ों में ही है। उसका कोई बहुत एक संगठित रूप हम एज ए हिंदू हम नहीं बना पाते। वहाँ पर भी वो पॉलिटिकली करेक्ट होने की चेष्टा करते हैं। जो सारी बातें मैं पिछले 2-3 घंटे से यहाँ पर सुन रहा हूँ, मैं इन सबसे कम अनुभवी और कम जानता हूँ इस सब के बारे में, लेकिन मैं एक क्षत्रिय हूँ तो मैं आपको एक ही बात कह सकता हूँ, वो आध्यात्मिक पुट से कहूँगा, आम आदमी को सत्य समझ में नहीं आता है, आम आदमी को स्वार्थ समझ में आता है। मैन इज नॉट मोटिवेटेड बाय ट्रुथ, नो मैटर व्हाट स्टैटिस्टिक्स, व्हाट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन यू डू, it's the self-interest, the interest of survival. Somehow we are able to percolate that down to the lowest Hindu. And if you understand that अगर अब मैं खड़ा नहीं होता हूँ तो मेरा अस्तित्व मात्र संकट पर है, सत्य समझ में उसको नहीं आएगा। यहाँ कोई ब्रह्म विद्या की बात नहीं और अष्टावक्र गीता की बात हम नहीं कर रहे हैं। उसका स्वार्थ जब तक हम उससे लिंक नहीं करेंगे तब तक उसकी सर्वाइवल होना मुश्किल है। ये हमारा सारा प्रयोग एक वैचारिक मंथन के अलावा कुछ नहीं रह जाएगा। 6 महीने पहले ही मैं कुछ इन पाकिस्तानी हिंदू जो बिजवासन में रहते हैं इनसे मिलने आया था, इनसे बातचीत करी। कुछ चेष्टा हम कर रहे हैं कि एक मुनाबाव जहाँ पर सबसे पहले पाकिस्तानी लोग आके ठहरते हैं वहाँ पर हम एक विश्राम स्थल बनाएं, ताकि उन्हें अपनापन लगे यहाँ पर। कम से कम वो जो बेचारे आते हैं यहाँ पर, उनकी कुछ प्रैक्टिकल समस्याएं हैं, जैसे कि एक ज़िले से दूसरे ज़िले में उनको नहीं जाने दिया जाता। वही है जैसे जो यहाँ से जो पाकिस्तान जाते हैं नागरिक हिंदुस्तानी, उनको वहाँ जो SHO है उसको जाके अपनी हाजिरी दर्ज करानी होती है और उसको बताना होता है कि 20 किलोमीटर 30 किलोमीटर। पाकिस्तान में हमारा एक बहुत बड़ा तीर्थ स्थल है हिंदुओं का, हिंगलाज माता का, और चूंकि मैं चारण हूँ जाति का, तो मेरा उस जगह के प्रति एक बहुत सहज श्रद्धा मेरे मन में है। मेरे माता पिता 6 साल पहले वहाँ गए थे, दर्शन भी करके आए थे और वो सारे किस्से वो वहाँ से लेकर भी आए थे। तो उसी संदर्भ में कि हिंदुओं का मूवमेंट, जब वो बेचारे यहाँ से आ भी जाते हैं जब पाकिस्तान से, तो उनका मूवमेंट यहाँ पर हमारी ही सरकार उसको रोकती है। तो अब तक तो चूंकि एक असंवेदनशील सरकार थी, उन्होंने वहाँ पर वीज़ा रिस्ट्रिक्शंस भी बहुत अजीब से लगाए कि गजेटेड ऑफिसर आपको जब नॉमिनेट करेगा तभी आप वहाँ से वीज़ा मिलेगा। और कई वो प्रैक्टिकल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, वो कभी हम बैठ के उनको सॉर्ट आउट कर सकते हैं कि क्या क्या किया जा सकता है। मुझे संदीप ने कहा था कि कुछ ऐसा किया जाए, कुछ ऐसा कहा जाए कि जो हिट एट द गट्स, जो पीड़ा होती है, जो भय होता है, वो नाभि पर फील होता है। दिमाग तो सिर्फ सर्वाइवल का इंस्ट्रूमेंट है। तो मैं धर्मवीर और मीरा भाई इनको बुलाता हूँ और एक छोटा सा इंटरव्यू में इनसे कंडक्ट करता हूँ। आपको पता चलेगा कि हम तो हिंदू हैं, हम तो मानते हैं कि शरीर पुनर्जन्म लेता है, वंशानि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय, लेकिन किसी की आत्मा छीन ली जाए उससे बड़ा पाप। और हर मानव इसके अंदर अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन कर रहा है। अगर वो चुप बैठा है तो किसी की आत्मा छीनी जाती है, शरीर तो फिर मिल जाएगा, पैसा फिर आ जाएगा, मकान फिर बना लेंगे, 2 बाजू दिए हैं भगवान ने। किसी की आत्मा, किसी का धर्म उससे छीन लिया, वो बेचारा, उसकी 7 पुश्तें भटकेंगी। इधर आओ धर्मवीर, मीरा भाई चला। आपका नाम क्या है?
धर्म।
जोर से बोलो, सबको तो देखो बोलो। माइक के सामने, माइक में आके बोलो, मेरी आवाज़ वैसी ज़्यादा है।
मेरा नाम है धर्मवीर, सिंध प्रांत हैदराबाद से आए हैं। ये 2013 में वहाँ की जो पीड़ा है।
अब क्यों आए आप वहाँ से? अब पाकिस्तान रहने वाले हो आप?
जी जी।
तो हिंदुस्तान क्यों आए हो आप?
वहाँ पे इसलिए, वहाँ पे अत्याचार बहुत है। हमारे बच्चे लेके बाहर हम नहीं जा सकते हैं, हमारे साथ वो अत्याचार होते हैं जो हम कह भी नहीं सकते हैं। हमारी जो बहन बेटियों पे जुल्म किया जाता है। वहाँ की गवर्नमेंट, वहाँ के जो ज़मींदार है, इंतज़ाम बनाए रखे हैं, वो हमारी फरियाद नहीं सुनते हैं। और इसी तरह हमारी जो ज़मीन जायदादें हैं वो भी उन्होंने हड़प कर ली। हमें यहाँ आने से भी रोका जाता है। हमारे पासपोर्ट पे कई मुश्किलातें खड़ी कर देते हैं, नहीं बन पाते हैं।
तो आपको क्या कहते हैं वो कि आप हिंदू हैं इसलिए हम ऐसा कर रहे हैं, या आपका डर है या आपका वहम है? ये
उनका ये कहना है कि आप इस्लाम कबूल कर लो। मैं
अच्छा, साफ बोला जाता है आपको?
जी हाँ।
कौन लोग हैं जो कहते हैं आपको इस तरह से?
ये मौलवी जो होते हैं उनका ये कहना है।
तो आप उनकी शिकायत नहीं करते वहाँ पे कानून को जाकर?
करते हैं, कानून कुछ भी नहीं करता है।
अच्छा,
हमें और कहते हैं कि अच्छा, ये तो ठीक तो कह रहे हैं, आप इसी चीज़ पे इस्तेमाल करो और अपना धर्म परिवर्तन कर लो। और ज़्यादातर के हिंदू तो काफिर ही है, उनमें कौन सा कोई लाभ है। ना मंदिर छोड़ा जाता है वहाँ, तो सबको पता, हम तो अपनी आँखों से देखा। यहाँ के जो लोग हैं वो तो अखबार टीवी में देखते हैं। हमने तो वहाँ तो हमारे हाथ घरों पे हमले हुए हैं, घर जला दिए गए हैं, मंदिर लूट मार करके तोड़ दिए जाते हैं। पुलिस कुछ नहीं करती है, ना ज़मींदार वहाँ के जो इंतज़ाम बने वो भी कुछ नहीं करते।
कौन लोग करते हैं ये लोग? ये कौन होते हैं जो इस तरह काम करते हैं? कोई जमात है, कोई क्या है ये किस तरह से ऐसे उठ के तो नहीं आ जाते होंगे कोई लोग?
नहीं, वहाँ के कुछ ऐसे लोग, टीमें बनी रहती हैं, इस्लामी की हैं वो, उनका यही काम है धर्म परिवर्तन करना और घरों में, गांव में जमातें जाके उनको जागरूकता, धर्म और मुसलमान इस्लाम के बारे में जागरूकता करवाना। मदरसे बने पड़े हैं, कई गांव को भी उन्होंने मुसलमान बना दिया गया है।
हिंदू गाँवों को?
जी।
तो आप मीडिया में या किसी अखबार वाले से किसी से बात नहीं करते कि वो आपकी मदद करें इस संदर्भ में, कोई इस बात को उठाएं वो?
सर हम तो सबको बताते हैं, जो दुखी आदमी है, जो बच्चा रो रहा है, वो दूध के लिए तो माँ नहीं है तो क्या करेगा, वो रोता ही है। ना मीडिया सुन रही, ना अखबार, कुछ कोई नहीं सुन रहा हमारी।
तो फिर आपने फिर फैसला ये किया कि हम छोड़ देते हैं पाकिस्तान, राइट?
हमने सब कुछ छोड़ के हिंदुस्तान आ गए।
कैसे मिला आपको वीज़ा?
वीज़ा बड़ी मुश्किल से मिला, और वीज़ा के लिए एक एक साल 2-2 साल हमें भटकना पड़ता था। ज़्यादातर हमारे पासपोर्ट भी नहीं बनाने देते हैं, बोलते हैं कि आप हिंदुस्तान क्यों जा रहे हो। तो हमें इस एक वजह से वीज़ा मिलता है कि हमें तीर्थ यात्रा पे हरिद्वार महाकुंभ दर्शन के लिए हमें जाना है।
अच्छा, उस गांव की कहानी बताइए जरा, वो जहाँ पर वो 400 लोगों को वीज़ा मिल गया था।
ये सिंध हैदराबाद से है।
हाँ।
जो सिंध हैदराबाद और मीरपुर के बीच में एक गांव है, वहाँ से कुछ लोगों को वीज़ा मिल गया था आने का, भाई पाकिस्तान और अपने भारत का वीज़ा मिल गया। जब उनको परसों की गाड़ी पे जाना था तो रात उनके घरों पे आके हमले हो गए, चौतरफ से उनको घेर लिया, उनके पासपोर्ट भी छीने गए, और जो धन था और भैंसें, गाय, बकरियां, उन्होंने सब हड़प कर लिया और उनको बांध दिया गया। वो जाके सुबह उनका पता जाके चला, भाई ये गांव का गांव हिंदुस्तान जा रहे थे, और ये काम ज़मींदारों ने करवाया था, वहाँ के जो इंतजाम ज़मींदार थे उन्होंने करवाया था। कुछ नहीं हुआ, अखबार वाले लिख के दे देंगे भाई ये है, तो उसके बाद कोई एक्शन नहीं उठाते वो।
आप जब आए हो तो आपके पीछे ज़मीन है, मकान है, गाय भैंसे हैं, उनका क्या हो रहा है?
कुछ ऐसे ज़मीन है हमारी जो 100 रुपये की है, 10 रुपये में बेच दी, नहीं बेचते हैं तो वो भी 10 रुपये भी नहीं मिलेंगे। गाय हैं, इस हिसाब से चलता रहा हमारे साथ।
That's it. बैठो भैया, धन्यवाद, आपका समय लिया।
Thanks, Dr. Ratno. Now, after this rather moving account, I will throw the floor open for any questions.
My question is to Dr. Ganguly. Dr. Ganguly, while you have mentioned the need to document whatever is happening, and I am very much with that, my belief is that there's quite a lot of documentation, but what we certainly lack is an ecosystem. I'll give you an example. Like right now, last year there was a book by Dr. Meenakshi Jain, Rama's Ayodhya or something.
Rama and Ayodhya, Aryan books.
Yeah, correct. So I read the book, and what was very surprising was that there wasn't a single recommendation by any of the so-called Hindutva writers also. And here you have a situation where when an unknown entity like Shirin Nagar, she gets quoted by God knows who all. Whatever Nurani says, Nurani's words becomes like testaments to many. Now we have a situation where, say, Dr. Sitaram Goyal had done quite a lot of work. We had many other people who have been doing very good work, but somehow we always get to know that there was nothing happening, and right now we are making a beginning. If at all we start respecting what has been done previously and start accepting those people rather than getting scared that we would be called communal and we would not be invited to the so-called respectable circles, all our efforts are going to come to a naught. That was my submission.
Ecosystem is required, that is not there, we have to develop that. These efforts are in that direction. And the other thing is, I stressed on documentation because we are a forgetful civilization. So while activism, no doubt, you need to have activism, documentation is also required as to what has happened to them, why it has happened to them, and give it to the US Congress, because they have all the documentation that is against, that, you know, that is on the other side. So, but we don't have that. When we have to, as she said, when we have to present a case, make our case, where is the documentation? So that is required, because otherwise we are a forgetful race. ठीक है, क्या हुआ, छोड़ दो, भूल गया. So there is no, you cannot do with either. So those who are activists will do activism. Those who are those who can document do this. So there has to be a blending. And obviously about your thing about the ecosystem, no doubt there has to be. Otherwise, you can't develop that narrative.
तो I have to fight back and tell them कि भैया फला स्कूल छोड़ो, बल्कि फला गुरुकुल में एडमिशन कराओ, ऐसा दिन आना चाहिए। और जो राणा जी ने कहा कि भाई मैं क्षत्रिय हूँ तो मेरी भाषा वैसी है, तो मैं उसमें हमेशा कहती हूँ कि मैं क्षत्रिय भी हूँ और ब्राह्मण भी हूँ। और उसका कारण है, सही मायने में मेरे पिता क्षत्रिय थे और मेरी माँ ब्राह्मण थी, तो मैं कहती हूँ मेरे में दोनों गुण हैं। क्योंकि जब पेन की ज़रूरत है वहाँ तलवार काम नहीं करती, और जहाँ तलवार की ज़रूरत है वहाँ पेन काम नहीं करता। आप में दोनों गुण का समावेश होना चाहिए। और जो डॉक्टर गांगुली ने बात कही, वो ब्राह्मण वाली बात कही कि किसी भी लड़ाई का आधार बनाने के लिए पहले आपके पास वो दस्तावेज तो हो तैयार, जिस पर आप वो माइंड स्पेस वाली लड़ाई लड़ें। और जब वो माइंड स्पेस वाली लड़ाई आप फैक्ट फिगर्स के साथ दिखाते हैं, उसके बाद तलवार वाली लड़ाई काम आती है। तो वो एक या ये वाली चॉइस आपके पास नहीं है, आपको दोनों जगह पर अपनी काबिलियत दिखानी होगी। अभी जो व्यक्ति पाकिस्तान से भाग कर आया है, धोखा दिए बिना तो नहीं आ सकता था, झूठ बोले बिना तो नहीं आ सकता था, और वो धोखा और झूठ फरेब की कैटेगरी में नहीं है, वो अपने जीवन रक्षा के लिए उसकी आवश्यकता थी। उसी तरीके से वो उन्होंने बोली नहीं है कुछ चीज़ें जो मैं वहाँ के कानून के बारे में जानती हूँ। जहाँ पर जो संविधान था, वो संविधान को जब लागू किया गया तो वो सेक्युलर संविधान था, धर्मनिरपेक्ष संविधान था, लेकिन उसमें अमेंडमेंट करके उसको इस्लामिक देश बनाया गया। मेरा जो देश है उसमें सेक्युलर शब्द ही नहीं था, लेकिन जब इमरजेंसी लागू करनी थी तो एक सेक्युलर करके उसको एक अजीब सभ्यता की दृष्टि पर लाया गया कि जितने लोग अपने आप को हिंदू कहते हैं वो असभ्य हैं और वो धर्मनिरपेक्ष नहीं है। और मेरा उसमें ये मानना है कि धर्मनिरपेक्ष मतलब क्या? धर्म सापेक्ष तो समझ आता है, धर्मनिरपेक्ष का मतलब क्या? क्योंकि धर्म की लड़ाई तो हमारी एक सभ्यता की लड़ाई है, और हमें तो कहा गया है कि आप धर्म पर बंधे रहें। सीता ने अपना धर्म निभाया, अपने पति की आज्ञा को माना। मीरा ने अपना धर्म निभाया, अपने पति की आज्ञा को नहीं माना। तो धर्म का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है, जो अस्तित्व है इस देश में, न्यायपूर्ण व्यवस्था का, न्याय सबके लिए, तो आप अपने आप को धर्म से विमुख कैसे कर सकते हैं?
पर जो प्रश्न आपने पूछा, मुझे लगता है कि पुस्तकें तो स्कूल वाली जल्दी से जल्दी बदल लेनी चाहिए। वी शुड हैव डन इट यस्टरडे, बट आई थिंक वी शुड डू विद इन अ ईयर और टू। देयर इज नो सफ्रेनाइजेशन इन्वॉल्व्ड, देयर इज ओनली डूइंग decent, proper pedagogy and proper history.
Proper fact, correct.
Yes.
We can have a chapter on Anirban Ganguly and Sandeep Balakrishnan.
That they'll call saffronizing.
And Dr.
Getting mental space and so on and so forth.
Can you speak a bit louder?
Okay, fine. The issue at hand is first obtaining the mental space, right? And then, you know, जब क्षत्रिय का काम है क्षत्रिय का काम करो, जब ब्राह्मण का काम है ब्राह्मण का काम करो। लेकिन हमारे संविधान में आर्टिकल 30 नाम की एक चीज है, ठीक है, जो भी संस्था अपने आप को हिंदू कहती है उसमें सरकार की दखलंदाजी की जा सकती है, लेकिन जो अब्राहमिक समुदाय हैं उनके उसमें दखलंदाजी नहीं की जा सकती, और दिस इज प्योरली बिकॉज ऑफ difference in interpretation. So rather than reduce privileges, stop appeasement and all that, which is going to be very difficult, does the current government plan to extend Article 30 in a very secular fashion to all citizens of whatever grouping, including the H-word Hindu? This is my simple question. From my elected representative.
Elected representative? Yes. Okay. You know, I came across a very strange enactment today. I know the history of that particular institute because for 4-5 generations, the family has contributed towards building those educational institutes, which is Arya Kanya Sadan and Arya Kanya Vidyalaya and Arya Sansthan in Pataudi House. This was a family house of some well-to-do people of Delhi. And from their family funds, they have been running it without any aid of any government. And because it was unaided, it was not acceptable, but they run the hostel and proper school, and it's a fantastic, fabulous place to be in. I rescued 5 children some time back. I don't want to name, but I rescued 5 children. Mother had died, and the father was committing rape on the eldest and the younger daughter. Obviously, father sent to jail. There is no one to look after the children. So state comes into place. Central welfare body takes control of the children. And central welfare control body, when I wrote to them, because I was the rescuer, I wrote to them that kindly see to it that the boys and the girls stay together and they should be in touch with each other, because the eldest daughter, who was barely 12, is treated like a mother by the younger child who's 4-year-old. So 2 boys, and they were treating their elder sister like a mother. And she was the one who used to look after them, who used to go to a corporation school. So I said, see to it that they are put together. Now they placed them at one particular institution, again I'm not naming, a very Hindu secular name of the institution, but that was actually a missionary institution. As the luck will have it, within a few weeks they were having their exams. So the children came back to give their exam. I went to meet those children and they hugged me and cried. I said, "Kya hua beta? What's the matter?" They said, "Mata ka locket छीन के फेंक दिया, फला फला को कमरे में बंद करके अलग रखा, भाइयों को नहीं मिलने देते, बहनों को नहीं मिलने देते, और ज़बरदस्ती हमको मीट खाने को कहते." They were vegetarian children. I took a very, very strong offense, and I got to realize that again that Abrahamic religion business comes in. I got that recorded, and being a lawyer helps sometimes. So I got it recorded and I put it in writing that welfare body needs to send the children to a place where the boys and the girl can be together, at least during some hours of the day, and they can follow their own religion. And there is no forced conversion, because this is the manner in which you're converting. A child who has no way of rescuing himself or herself is forced into certain circumstances, and an advantage is taken of the circumstance the child is in. And dare you mess with these children, there will be a petition tomorrow in the court, and I shall be naming you in the court and have your institution shut down. The welfare body took charge, sent these children to Arya Kanya Niketan and Arya Vidyalaya. The boys and the girls in junior classes stayed together. The brothers and sisters were in touch. Later discovered one of the child was suffering from tuberculosis, etc. Taken care of, very well looked after. There was some case of sodomy or some such thing in the institution. I'm purposely citing because this girl, the children were getting raped in their own homes. Now such things can happen even in an institute where a particular manager is misconducting itself, but that doesn't make the institution responsible. Wrong things can happen anywhere. But then started the entire struggle of trying to bring this institution under Juvenile Justice Act, Delinquency Act, and taking control of the institution. And unfortunately, I got to discover, of course that case was fought in the court and is still continuing at whatever level, but at a mental level, the enactment to Juvenile Justice Act under the garb of Nirbhaya case is being conducted now. And an attempt to take over those institutes which are self-funded, have nothing to do with the state, is going on. And some particular joint secretary has moved that case. I got the papers today and I read it, and I'm glad you asked that question, because I was shocked. I said, how can this be? I mean, you protect a particular institution under one name, some article of the constitution. The other, which are self-funded, can be taken control of when the state is not paying a penny. So there is a unthinking legislative mechanism or a deep thinking mechanism. We need to decipher that. I mean, all this is happening under a particular set of plan, or because others are not planning, it's all happening. Whichever way.
Yes, Dr. Bajaj.
Now, this educational institutions, of course, we all know the state intervenes, but the state of India intervenes in the religious institutions of India also. Yeah. And I can give you an example there. About 30 years ago, when I was in Chennai, one of our neighbors, he started constructing a temple. He got money collected. He spent almost his life. And a beautiful temple was constructed for Anjaneya and Nanganallur. And the temple grew. It had a large number of visitors. And once now it had enough resources, 6 months ago, the temple has been taken over by the state. There's no contribution from any side.
Could there be a reason for that, though? I mean, I just need to understand what would be the reason.
I'll come down.
I mean, sometimes it may be justified and sometimes it may not be justified.
It is always unjustified. There could be a reason that within the trust there could be some, I don't know in this case, there could be, but that doesn't justify the state coming in and taking over and putting a tehsildar to, or look at this Padmanabha temple.
Absolutely.
Well, this 1750, those great kings, the Raja Martanda, Anidam Martanda Verma, he is such a great king, and he decides that this state is donated to the Raja to Padmanabha. So all the resources, all the treasure of Raja that state, and it was a very rich state, goes to this temple, and that family takes care of that great treasure. And they start calling themselves not Rajas, but Padmanabha Dasas.
Dasas,
yeah. Till today they call themselves Padmanabha Dasas. And they don't do a thing, the Raja doesn't even take a bite of food till he doesn't go and present himself before the god in the morning. And that temple, suddenly you decide that this royal family is not good enough, and a tehsildar will be good to take care of that great treasure. That family has built that treasure, for 250 years have looked after it, and we do not.
And not disrupted.
And can you find an example of a tehsildar under whose care something has lasted for 20 years?
I'm with you, but I'm confused as to the rationality. Or there is no rationality.
There's the state of India has accepted the state of India has accepted itself to itself the right to interfere in the religious institutions of Hindu community, and we have allowed it to happen. We have allowed it to happen. Very great Brahmins have written these laws. The very great Brahmins have sat down in commissions to create all this legal structure. The Supreme Court of India, there's a judgment which says that when a devotee comes to the temple and offers money, that's a religious act. When the money is collected, that is a secular act. And from that point onwards, the state can intervene.
Somebody must be very wise who's put that on paper. I won't counter that, but all I'll say in perhaps this enlightened forum, society deserves the kind of government it gets, is what the Greeks said.
So
That's a good point.
that's always right.
That's a good point.
That's
For 60 years, if we have tolerated a state of affairs that we have come to such a
Absolutely.
level,
We are responsible.
it is time to now put the mind space right here first within ourselves before we can turn around and tell somebody else. And I'm with you.
Yes,
I'm with
yes,
you on
the
that.
gentleman there.
This question is to Meenakshi. Could you tell us something about that 2011 census data?
We have to await the numbers. And I know exactly what the numbers are, but I would want that number so that the mind space battle that I'm constantly fighting, that I am part of a shrinking civilization, will go on paper.
Let me tell you something. This the current Registrar General, about 3 months ago, one of my colleagues asked him that the numbers are lying with you.
Why don't
So
you?
why don't you publish? He said that let me first find out an appropriate job for myself. Because the last Registrar General, when he published these numbers, he was immediately transferred.
That just highlights the
But why are we not getting it published now?
interest. Let me find a job, a governor's job or something.
No, you will
No,
not
no,
be on a
no,
government.
no, no. The last one was
Outside
sacked.
the system.
The last
Outside the
one was sacked. When he published these numbers,
Punishment to smoke.
Jant Bantia was sacked.
That's what I'm saying. It is a very short span from let truth guide the world and guide us, and that's on the basis
The
of what we
BJP
got.
government then. He was sacked in the BJP government?
No.
And that's how we got our independence.
It
Now
came in
come to a point where
2004.
somebody
The data
says,
came
"Let
in
me first
2000.
Secure myself.
2001 data was released.
Ma'am, so later this year this data is going to be released.
I am just an MP.
The gentleman behind you. Yeah. Your turn next. Your turn next.
I just wanted to clarify, I don't know if it's true, but I'm under the impression that the government interferes in taking the funds only of Hindu religious
That's right.
That's right.
and not any other.
They cannot. They cannot in any other.
Minority is protected, and everybody else is a minority.
They cannot do it in any other.
Yes, sir.
Though I may be getting reduced into minority,
Yes.
So but that doesn't matter.
but that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
And then you keep breaching my integrity by making Jains as part of minority, Sikhs as part of minority, very soon maybe Buddhist as part of minority.
I have received Tirtham in Rameshwaram. In the Garbhagriha, the Tirtham was given to me by policemen. That's how the temples of India are. Temples of India.
And the moment you raise this issue, you say that temple has been taken. First argument is, oh, there must have been something wrong in the managing committee. They must have been corrupt. So that's the standard answer. And when it's the other institutions of the minorities, you leave it to the community to look after. You don't interfere.
No,
or sort out their problem.
There can be problems. They have to solve within that space.
Another aspect, you see, maybe this is not the right forum, but because I'm carrying some anger, I'm carrying some anger within.
Yeah, you can.
See, Nityanand was labeled as some lech and all kinds of things against him. But when this man comes out clean, how many TV channels, newspapers, etc. publish the story?
None.
One of the Pithadish, Shankaracharya,
Don't talk about
right?
Don't talk.
Then arrested, maligned, 325 or 27 hours of bad publicity. Now he gets out, not even 2 minutes, 1 minute. A ribbon is run underneath that he has been acquitted of all charges. But you've maligned the reputation of the person. So many wrongdoings to the minority community children in the church. Some obscure newspaper in Kerala will publish, a national daily will not even touch that story. So many nuns from Sister Ramya to Abhaya to whoever, Jasmine and others, no mainstream media ever covers that story. So the bias of denigrating some and protecting some is existing. And that is what I call mind-space battle and building of India as a nation. All of us are just the same. There could be wrongdoings in one community, there could be wrongdoings in another, there could be right in one and right in the other. Nobody has a right to interfere in certain spheres, and nobody should be protected from the sternness of law. And mind space should be equally available to all. And it is that space people like me are fighting about.
Just
I have a question on why
he's been waiting for
we are working for Pakistani Hindus because I am from Rajasthan. तो ट्रेन लैंड हमारे यहाँ जोधपुर में लोग करते हैं। हमारे लिए एक टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन है, 2004 में वसुंधरा जी ने उसके लिए बहुत अच्छा इनिशिएटिव लिया और एक प्रपोजल भेजा कि इतने लोग हैं हमारे पास जिनको 7 ईयर से ज्यादा हो गया है एज पर इंडियन लॉ, 7 साल आप रहते हो, आपके ऊपर कोई ऐसे चार्जेस नहीं होते कि आपको सिटीजनशिप देने में कोई टेक्निकल पुलिस का क्लियरेंस है तो मिलता है मतलब। लेकिन 2004 से लेके 2014 अभी उस टाइम जिसको 6.5 साल हुए वो भी रह गया, जिसको 6 साल हुए वो भी रह गया, फिर 10 साल ये निकल गए तो 16 साल तक के भी लोग बैठे हैं, वेट कर रहे हैं। तब एक बेनिफिट हमको क्या हुआ कि वसुंधरा जी ने वहां से इनिशिएटिव लेके सेंटर को भेजा और बाकी स्टेट्स में भी हमने फॉलो अप किया और सेंटर ने मांगना शुरू किया। तो कुछ स्टेट्स ने, गुजरात ने इनिशिएटिव लिया, हो गया, मध्य प्रदेश ने लिया, हो गया, राजस्थान का तो फर्स्ट प्रपोजल था, 3-4 स्टेट्स में हो गया, बाकी जगह से कोई प्रपोजल नहीं आया। लोग बहुत सारी जगह स्प्रेडेड हैं जिसके जहां तो लीगली इज इट पॉसिबल कि सेंट्रल कैन टेक द इनिशिएटिव कि आपके यहाँ पे जो भी इस तरीके की पेंडेंसीज हैं और वो लोग लीगली पूरा अपना एलिजिबल हैं, उनको 7 साल से ज्यादा भी है, उनका पुलिस क्लियरेंस भी है, वो लोग पीसफुली रह भी रहे हैं, उन्होंने कोई इंडियन लॉ ब्रेक नहीं किया है, तो क्या सेंटर ऐसा इनिशिएटिव ले सकता है?
मैं उसी पर थी, मैं बल्कि जो बात आपने कही ये बात मैं कुछ नहीं तो 10-15 साल से लगातार कह रही हूँ कि भैया अफगानी आते हैं इस देश में जो अब तालिबान को फॉलो करते या परसिक्यूटेड है उसकी हमें जानकारी नहीं है, मगर वो यहाँ पे अपना मैकेनिकल वर्कशॉप आराम से लगा के अपना दुकान चला रहा है और परिवार पाल रहा है। बांग्लादेशी को तो उसकी भी आवश्यकता नहीं है, वो तो मेहमान है, आते ही आधार कार्ड मिल जाता है उसको। और जो बेचारा पाकिस्तान से आता है, और मैं अपने आप को पाकिस्तानी कहती हूँ टू दैट एक्सटेंट कि मेरी भी परिवार उधर से माइग्रेट होकर इधर आया, फर्क सिर्फ इतना है कि 1947 में आ गए थे, अक्लमंद लोग थे जी। तो वो और ऐसे में जो देश का कानून, मतलब अगर आप ईरान इराक का बॉर्डर पार करें तो गोली मार दी जाती है, और अगर हम यहाँ से पाकिस्तान का बॉर्डर भी पार करेंगे तो शायद गोली मार दी जाएगी, सीधी बात है। और बांग्लादेश भी जाएंगे तो गोली मार दी जाएगी, कहीं भी जाओगे तो गोली मार दी जाएगी या उठा के जेल भेज दिया जाएगा। हिंदुस्तान एक बहुत अनोखा देश है जहाँ पर रोहिंग्याज आते हैं जिनको बांग्लादेश में एक्सेप्ट नहीं किया जाता, लेकिन वो जम्मू में ऊपर, जम्मू के ऊपर जो जम्मू कश्मीर मतलब श्रीनगर को जोड़ने वाली वो पतली सी सड़क है ना, जहाँ पर किश्तवाड़ है, वहाँ पे 100 मात्र परिवार रहते हैं, जहाँ पर हर कुछ महीनों बाद, 15 महीने बाद राइटिंग होती है और फ्राइडे को ही होती है, और उन्हीं घरों को, दुकानों को जलाया जाता है और उन्हीं के साथ शैतानी होती है। अब वहाँ से वो बेचारे हिंदू धीरे धीरे उनका पलायन हो रहा है, लेकिन वो रोहिंग्या जो कहाँ से, म्यांमार से चला, बांग्लादेश होते हुए दिल्ली पहुँचा, वो जम्मू पार करके श्रीनगर पहुँच गया है, उसको वहाँ बसाया जा रहा है और भारत सरकार को ज्ञान नहीं है।
There is a Muslim organization in Hyderabad which has given shelters to 6,000 Rohingya families.
नहीं, वो मैं उसी में बोल रही हूँ कि उसको वहाँ पर वो पर्टिकुलर रीजन बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रीजन है, क्योंकि वहाँ जो हिंदू टिका हुआ है वो बावजूद हर मुश्किलात के टिका हुआ है, और वो आपका एक बफर जोन है। उस बफर जोन को प्रोटेक्ट करने की बजाय आप उसको डी हिंदुआइज करने पर लगे हुए हैं, और वो मिलिटेंट टाइप क्लास के लोग को उधर बिठा रहे हैं। तो ये बात अगर मेरे जैसे अनपढ़ को समझ आ रही है, जो कि कोई सिक्योरिटी एक्सपर्ट कायदे से नहीं है, मुझको समझ आ रही है, तो जो सो कॉल्ड सिक्योरिटी एक्सपर्ट्स हैं उनको समझ क्यों नहीं आ रही, और कोई इस विषय में काम क्यों नहीं कर रहा? और इसी तरीके से आपकी माइग्रेशन को लेकर पॉलिसी क्या है? अब तस्लीमा नसरीन जैसे लोग जो कि मुस्लिम थे मगर प्रताड़ित थे, अहमदिया जो प्रताड़ित है, शिया जो प्रताड़ित है, उसके विषय में आप कुछ काम नहीं कर रहे। हिंदू जो प्रताड़ित है, वो प्रताड़ना के रहते इस देश में आ रहा है, उसको आप सिटीजनशिप लॉज के मुताबिक नागरिकता देते हैं या नहीं देते हैं, 10-10 साल तक उसको भुखमरी में रखते हैं, लेकिन जो गैर कानूनी ढंग से आ जाता है उसको आप आधार कार्ड दे देते हैं। तो आपका कानून क्या है और ये देश क्या कानून व्यवस्था पर चल रहा है? और जिस देश में नागरिकता को लेकर कानून ना हो, क्या उस स्थान को देश रहने का अधिकार भी है? तो वो खैर मेरी एक अजीब किस्म की लड़ाई है, और मैं आप जैसे कई अपने मित्रों को पूर्व में कह चुकी हूँ, जिन लोगों ने ऐसे हिंदू रिफ्यूजी पाकिस्तान से आए वालों के लिए काम में रहे हैं जुटे हुए। एक मामला इधर का है और एक मामला चिटगांव और उस इलाके का भी है, कि भाई आप मुझे कृपया करके डेटा दें, मैं उस पर UNHCR के माध्यम से रेफ्यूजी स्टेटस मांगना चाहती हूँ, और जो इंटरनेशनल रेफ्यूजी स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं जिसके तहत उनको भत्ता भी मिलना चाहिए, उनको भारत, इन लोग को भारत में ही क्यों जगह मिले, ये अमेरिका क्यों नहीं जा पाते? मुझे ये बताइए। अगर अफगानी अमेरिका पहुंच सकता है, स्विट्जरलैंड पहुंच सकता है,
बहुत सारे हैं,
कहीं और पहुंच सकता है, हिंदू को, क्योंकि आपने जेनोसाइड ऑफ हिंदू को ही रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं किया, इसलिए बांग्लादेश का प्रताड़ित हिंदू या पाकिस्तान का प्रताड़ित हिंदू या मलेशिया में प्रताड़ित हिंदू या हिंदुस्तान में प्रताड़ित हिंदू, उसकी रिकॉग्निशन नहीं है। और यूनाइटेड नेशन ह्यूमन राइट काउंसिल को पता ही नहीं है, या पता है तो जानबूझ के उसको डालना नहीं चाहते। वहां पे एक अजीब किस्म की राजनीति अपनी है। तो इसलिए नहीं, पर उसका कारण जो अनिर्बन साहब ने कहा आपको कि भैया वो डाटा कहाँ है, उनकी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन और कहानियां कहाँ हैं, उनके ऊपर बेंकिन जैसे रिचर्ड बेंकिन ने जो बांग्लादेशियों के ऊपर किताब लिखी, रिफ्यूजी हिंदुओं के ऊपर कोई किताब लिखी है किसी ने? वो मुसीबत है। तो इसलिए वो कलम की जो ताकत है उसको अंडरमाइन मत कीजिए, वो कलम की ताकत बहुत बड़ी ताकत है। तलवार बाद में आएगी, आज की तलवार कलम है। और इसलिए जो सॉफ्ट स्टोरीज हैं, अभी इनको याद होगा कि मेरी ज़मीन इतने एकड़ वहाँ पर पड़ी है, या इतनी छोटा प्लॉट है, या मेरे पड़ोस में एक रिंकल नाम की लड़की थी जिसको उठाकर रात को ले जाया गया था और जबरन शादी कर दी थी और निकाह करवा दिया था, और माइनर लड़की थी। और ऐसी तमाम लड़कियां जो कोर्ट के अंदर पहुंचती हैं, जो कोर्ट में बयान देने के बावजूद कोर्ट उनको वापस उनके साथ भेज देता है। जो याद है, जिन जिन बच्चियों के नाम याद है, जिनके पिता को गड्ढा खोद के वहां पर मारा गया, किसी को जला दिया गया, वो लिखिए तो, डॉक्यूमेंट तो कीजिए। उस जो सॉफ्ट स्टोरीज हैं, जो गलत कहानी है, उसकी हमारे पास आज तक तिथि के आधार पर कोई हिस्टोरिकल किताब नहीं है। और मैं उस हिस्टोरिकल किताब, उस इतिहास को क्रिएट करना चाहती हूँ जिसको हॉलोकास्ट ऑफ हिंदूज नाम का आप इतिहास कह सकते हैं। उसका आधार हमें UNHCR से लड़ाई लड़ने के काम आएगा, जहाँ पर रिफ्यूजी स्टेटस की हम डिमांड करें उन सब प्रताड़ित हिंदुओं के लिए जो आते हैं, और उनको भत्ता भी मिले, और वो मात्र भारत में नहीं बल्कि अमेरिका को उनको एक्सेप्ट करना पड़े।
You had a question? Yeah.
Media is one of the main things, like, creates a perception in the people. So the negative perception is being created mainly by media, I mean, that's hiding it. So can we develop some guidelines for the media, or how do we solve this?
I will be the wrong person to answer that question, because I think INB is the department which needs to look into this. और मतलब ये तो मेरा डिपार्टमेंट है नहीं और मेरे अधिकार क्षेत्र से बाहर है.
I mean, regarding saffronization, these are words that not created by the media. So, how do we?
I think you can't try and cover up someone's mouth. You know, what you can do is outshout them like how we did during the campaign. That is what is needed.
आप लोग, when I say आप लोग, that means the BJP which are our political representatives. Will you dump the prevention of communal violence bill
100%
into the gutter?
It's dumped.
Thank you very much.
I mean, so far as I am concerned, it's dumped when it came.
It is an abeyance. It is in the parliament. 5 साल बाद भगवान न करे इस देश का कुछ हो सकता है.
नहीं कोई ऐसे मतलब जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी निकल आए कि सडनली जैसे वो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस एक्ट वाला उन्होंने निकाल दिया, उसकी गारंटी मेरी नहीं है, लेकिन मेरी गारंटी इसकी पक्की है कि अगर किसी ने कोशिश की तो जो ट्रेजरी बेंचेस से होना चाहिए वो होगा.
Yes. Again, back to mind space. Okay. So the problem is the type of research that you need and the type of sustained research that you need. It cannot be done by refugees writing their account in diaries. It has to have a real academic backing and visible public intellectuals. As of now, the only people who have been successful public intellectuals are all related to JNU by pedigree. Everywhere else, especially in all these new private institutes that have some kind of social studies and social sciences, they are bringing in all these terms of contract. जैसे आपने कहा था, उसको सैक कर दिया गया कि अगर आप ऐसे उल्टी सीधी बातें लिखोगे तो आपको सैक कर दिया जाएगा. ठीक है, तो इसका आप कुछ कर सकेंगे क्योंकि at least the institution should be able to say that these are this person's only opinions. He has the freedom to speak, but the institution doesn't really subscribe to it. At least this much it should do. It doesn't have to support every Hindu cause.
Can we dismantle JNU?
No.
There's no need to dismantle JNU. Just glasnost is what we require. And you see, they also, all these institutions also have terms of contract such as not being able to form unions, which should really exercise the seculars. You also cannot form unions. I mean, have you heard of this? Delhi University, because it's government, you have a union, but if you have a private institution, you can't have a union. This is contrary to the law of the land.
Sharma ji, you had a...
Oh, I had several. One was, there was a judgment of the Supreme Court that any order taking over a Hindu place of worship without specifying the time is illegal. This, about a month back or more than 2 months back, Subramanian Swami had won this case on behalf of the Hindu Acharya Sabha and the temple priests. Now, I don't know what is happening on that.
That temple they're fighting over for, they'll take over someday. There's one temple is left in Tamil Nadu, and they're at it day after day after day. So.
Another, you have come on the platform that all Indians are one, they will be treated equally. Will you abolish the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which has done all kinds of wrong things to the Hindus?
No,
That's
it
for
is.
you. The stance taken by the new minister.
That's for you.
Is quite exemplary.
No, it is. See, Minority Affairs Ministry is there, but the methodology adopted by Minority Affairs Minister is very innovative, and it is, I think, helping our cause.
And in fact, I think, if I may, it's not on religion or ethnic biases that she's working. She's working on affirmative action that those sections of society that need assistance to be raised to a certain level will form a mind space called minority.
Exactly. Please, there is under Article 15 of the Constitution, there is a provision that the state can make special provisions for socially and educationally backward sections of the population. Now, what is this backward? That is to be, if the Hindus, they are 65% literate, and the Muslims are 59%. Are the Muslims backward?
Not only this, the 65% literate and 59% illiterate might again have a different deficiency in terms of iron, food, so on and so forth. Maternal mortality rate may still be very different. The food intake may very well be different. The urbanization may be different. The quality of education may be different. The quality of occupation may be different. So there is no standardization, and the standardization is again done by the similar kind of places, etc. And there's a huge debate. But what I personally feel, economic criteria should be the best criteria to give economic benefit. Educational criteria should be the best criteria for giving educational benefit. Ultimately, the state's role has to be in governance, and governance means skill development. Give them entrepreneurial skills, allow them to run their own businesses, shops, farming activities, FSMEs, MSMEs, whatever they wish to. But your job is only to skill them and leave them in the open to swim on their own. That should be the job for all, and let them just move ahead. Now, if culturally I am prohibiting my women folk from participating in the workforce, what do I have a right to demand? Equality of opportunity. Because I'm not letting 50% of my workforce to come in. And then I say, oh, I'm backward. Because my 50% workforce is not even involved. And other 65% is involved. So obviously the gain will be 65%. In my case, it will be less because workforce is less. Now, I have a different take. At the same time, I think the Minority Affairs Minister is doing a wonderful job of equalizing various things.
May I? There are 5 globally recognized human development indicators.
Yeah.
They are recognized all over. And they are used to decide whether a society is advanced or backward. These are child mortality,
that's right,
infant mortality,
MMR, maternal mortality,
life expectancy at birth, urbanization, and literacy. After that, income.
Nutrition.
Now, in every one of them,
Muslims are
the
right.
Hindus are the worst off. And yet, you have granted all sorts of advantages to Muslims and the other. For Muslims, you have got such a report. Totally fraud. And for the other minorities, you don't have even that. And you are violating the constitution by granting them favors without any reason. Now, this is, I would like to submit, kindly think over it.
We've thought enough. It's been taken care of. And the Sikhs and the Parsis, etc., are not even taking any advantage. And Jews are not there. I mean, and she talked about ethnic communities.
I have to interrupt you. We just have 10 more minutes to go. So,
can I take your leave?
Here.
Can I leave, Sandeep?
10 more minutes.
Sandeep, a question to you and Dr. Bajaj. So, what do you think about the pop history which we are seeing on our television serials now? You have written about Tipu Sultan. We had a sort of Tipu Sultan, and now we have a pop history in form of Jodha Akbar. We have an entire generation of people brought up in the belief that Sufi saints were the best which could have happened to India. But is there any concerted effort that such a narrative be fought and the truth be actually brought to light?
Sandeep, I'll just...
Sandeep?
No,
you're the best.
I'll just put one line before you respond to this. Jodha Akbar, the movie, was banned in Rajasthan because the Karni Sena, the Rajputs and the Charans, he thrashed anybody who would want to display the movie in their theatres. Then the academy should follow this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are 2 ways to do this. you write your own pop history to dismantle that, or you challenge whatever is whatever distorted history is happening.
And make it big.
Yeah, make it big, make a stink, make a huge cry.
No, the reason I asked, you have already written something on
I have, yeah, that's my own.
But yeah, so that contribution is there. But as far as magnification, so that again, the mind space thing which we are talking about, not everyone goes and purchases a book on Tipu Sultan. No one is really interested in that. But if something is being shown on the television, which is very distinct and distorted as compared to whatever really happened, the impact of what I see on TV is magnified. It's much more on me as compared to numerous books which I would be reading.
Well, I mean, in the short term, apart from just responding and reacting to it, you don't have much of an option. Over the long term, you have to create, like what Meenakshi ma'am and the gentleman here said. You have to create that mind space, or catch hold of a producer who's rich enough to fund a movie of your thing.
This, whatever the state does, I think we have to be a literate society.
Yeah.
We have stopped reading books.
Yes.
The television cannot replace books. And we should reacquire that habit of reading good books, which we are not teaching this.
No, I don't watch TV at all.
Why don't you advertise your book right now?
No, this is not the forum for that. Last question.
How much casteism plays a role in persecution of Hindus? Because so many Muslims want to convert back to Hinduism, but they want to know what would be our caste. And
Freedom to choose the caste based on their occupation.
Remember, because I am in touch with so many people in Pakistan and Afghanistan who have converted to Hinduism, but they are being threatened, all the time, and they don't have passports. And even I have written to External Affairs Ministry, but did not receive any reply. So for them, they want a way out.
This is an old question on which the Arya Samajis, the Shuddhi was done. This is not something on which Indian society doesn't have answers. It's just that for years the answers have been given. And no, this has been continuing in Rajasthan, and even now there are various organizations which place you back in a Hindu fold in one way or the other. There's nothing new to be done about it.
Either you are a Brahmin or you are a Kshatriya, whatever you choose.
Whatever you choose, whatever you want.
Or you are a trader.
It is not a big problem anymore.
No, it
is not a significant problem anymore.
From Shraddhanand onwards, it's not a significant problem.
The social status is whatever they want to be in. I mean, I think we are a very liberal society because even non-believers can fall into that system. The fact is, I'm again taking it personally. We come from a family tradition where we don't follow the caste system. And my father-in-law, actually, we are Brahmin. We are Arya Samaji, Punjab, everybody is an Arya Samaji. We are Brahmins. But my boys grew up on the idea that whenever they'll ask their dada that, what are you? Sometimes he'll say, I'm a Shudra because I've been cleaning the social system all my life. So he wanted to teach the children. Now, after he expired, we went for the urns, etc. to Haridwar. Now they ask for your family name and the family tree, etc., etc. It takes time to search those ledgers. So I said, we are Brahmins. So the other one said, no, we are Kshatriya. I said, no, we are Brahmins. So I know what I'm talking about. So then the Pandit turns around, you are Brahmins or you are Kshatriyas? So my younger son took an offense. He said, आपको नया कास्ट बनाना होगा क्योंकि मेरे जो दादा थे वो सबसे बड़े ब्राह्मण थे उन जितना बुद्धिमान और इंटेलिजेंट आदमी नहीं था पूरे इंसाइक्लोपीडिया थे रैशनल के और हर तरीके से और उनसे बड़ा कोई क्षत्रिय भी नहीं था क्योंकि पूरी उम्र इस गांधी परिवार से लड़ते रहे जो उस समय बहुत ताकत में था तो आपको नया कास्ट बनाना है तो मैं कहा वो कास्ट भी एग्जिस्ट करता है हमारे यहाँ तो वो जो परशुराम वाले हैं वो वही लोग हैं तो हमारे यहाँ तो जो सिस्टम आप चाहें वो खुला है, जिसको जिधर एंट्री चाहिए उधर मिल जाएगी कोई। और बल्कि जब से ये रिजर्वेशन बिजनेस आया तब से वो एंट्री बंद हुई, क्योंकि आपको सर्टिफिकेट पर एडमिशन मिलना चालू हो गया कायदे से। तो मैं उस ज़माने की हूँ कि सब तो अपने आप को क्षत्रिय या ब्राह्मण ही कहते थे, कोई अपने आप को कोई और कास्ट बताना ही बंद कर दिया था। लेकिन वो अपवर्ड मोबिलिटी ख़त्म हो गई जब से आपने कास्ट बेस्ड रिजर्वेशन किया, क्योंकि उस जाति के आधार पर आपको लगता है कि बेनिफिट मिलेगा, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन में एंट्री मिलेगा, तो लोग जो अपने आप को अपवर्ड मोबाइल हो जाते थे, जो ब्राह्मण में मूव कर जाते थे, क्षत्रिय में मूव कर जाते थे, वैश्य में मूव कर जाते थे, वो रिवर्स मोबिलिटी चालू हो गया। अभी सबको ओबीसी को भी रिजर्वेशन चाहिए, अभी जाट अपने आप को ओबीसी बोलने को राजी हो गया। तो वो एक अलग किस्म का इतिहास गढ़ा गया रिजर्वेशन के आधार पर।
Dr. Bajaj, you have.
If there's no other, no.
अभी ये सब मेरा पर्सनल ओपिनियन है, बीजेपी का नहीं है।
Meenakshi Lekhi referred to the case of Jagadguru Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram. It's a very, very sad case. I think before we close, let me give you some idea of it. I'll take only 2 minutes. One, that Kanchi Shankaracharya is known to be carrying on the puja that was started by the Adi Shankaracharya, and they have carried it on uninterrupted till today. That was and at the time of this arrest, there was a conscious effort to made to interrupt that puja, and this case went to the High Court, and I think the Home Secretary of Tamil Nadu government filed an affidavit which is available, where he said that this place, this Matham, is not a religious place. It's a colony where these acharyas live and their servants live. There's no deity installed inside. They do no puja. They sit in front of a stone and throw flowers on it. This is a affidavit of the government of Tamil Nadu placed before the High Court, and the High Court doesn't even reject it.
Why should High Court cannot reject it? Because under the law, whatever.
So this is the level of persecution which is possible.
No, but I think what are we doing as a society? My question is that why is the name of the secretary not known to us? Why should we not have a space where we can air the name of the man who filed this affidavit? Even I don't know that name. I think he should be.
I'll give you that name.
Hi, that name should be made public, and let's move it. Let's trend it. Let's trend it on Twitter.
Right now, don't make Gopal Subramanian the judge of the Supreme Court. He's done this to Padmanabha.
All right, so I think we come to a close of this session. Thanks everybody for coming, and special thanks to the folks, the team at Tiva TV who's covering this live, and one more round of applause to the